Would the members of the Toronto and East York Community Council please come to Committee Room 1? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. If I can just encourage you to take your seat, we're going to start today's meeting. Welcome to Toronto East York Community Council, meeting number 26. We are gathered here on the traditional territories of the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, and home to many diverse Indigenous communities and people. And we're very grateful for the opportunity to be here. Today's meeting is going to proceed in a slightly different manner. You'll recognize that this is the first time we have come together since the passing of Councillor Deputy Mayor and Councillor Pam McConnell. She's greatly missed, and of course we want to be able to at the very beginning of this particular meeting, considering she was such a stalwart and such a presence on Community Council for so many years, I'd like to begin by calling for a moment of silence to commemorate and celebrate the life of Deputy Mayor Pam McConnell. Thank you very much. We're incredibly grateful today because we are joined by Pam's family. The McConnell family is sitting to my right. Jim McConnell, husband, Heather Ann McConnell, daughter, Madeline, who is on her way. We'll welcome her shortly. Noreen Dunphy, Frank McIntyre, lifelong friends and city champions. We also are joined by her incredible staff who have been by her side for all these many years, and especially during this difficult time. Sean McIntyre, Tom Davison, Kelly Sather, and Claudia Calabro. I'd like to take this opportunity to just provide a few words as the chair of Toronto East York Community Council, and to say that on behalf of this Community Council, we are incredibly sad and we miss Pam very much. We recognize that Pam was a titan, not just in Ward 28, but across the city. Her presence was greatly felt. As a new councillor who was elected in 2010, Pam very quickly became a friend and a mentor. one of our earliest conversations was all about planning. And of course, between the 2 downtown wards, the 3 downtown wards, including Councillor Cressy, we have almost the lion's share of development. And as new councillors, you oftentimes look to the veterans to seek and ask them for advice. She was always incredibly generous with her time, with her talent. I think that we can all recognize what she brought to the table and how she was able to carry out her duties, not just with humility, but a quiet resiliency and strength. She shared with me that there were certain things that had to be done in order for you to grow a prosperous and a sustainable and inclusive and equitable downtown. And that part of our job as elected officials was to do the very best we can to balance the many diverse interests in our communities. She also said, don't take things personally. There's going to be times where it's going to be very, very tough. Speak only when you need to speak, and try to hold the room. And when you have something to say it with conviction, and say it with the strength that is in you. I respect Pam for all of those kind words and gentle guidance that she gave me as a new councillor. I also value her incredible strength as a feminist and a social justice activist, which I think to the very core of who she is how she actually informed the work that she did. And of course, that very much aligns with my own personal values. She is greatly missed by everyone, and I know that we've had a number of conversations in the last year about what the future would look like. And spending more time with family and certainly taking care of her beautiful grandchildren was on her top priority, and that was always to be the case. And we talked about what legacy would look like. After many years of public service, you kind of don't know when is the conclusion. And I think that honestly, we could probably say that the conclusion for Pam has not come before us. She very clearly wanted us to all carry the torch. Her love for this city was profound, and I think that her affection for all of us is something that we can probably do more about in terms of caring for that kindness in the way we treat one another and each other, regardless of political stripes and where we sit geographically in the city. And that came across very, very clearly. I also learned finally that the quietest one in the room is not the strongest one in the room, but rather it's not the strongest one in the room, but the quietest one in the room is generally the smartest one in the room, and that was my own observation of Pam. When she did speak, we all listened. Thank you very much. I would like to now offer this opportunity to call upon members of Community Council who would like to speak and address the Council today and share with us your own reflections and your own remarks. Councillor Cressy.
Thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, I would say a few words as much on behalf of my mother as myself. In 1982, Pam and my mother ran on a joint ticket together. My mother is councillor and Pam is trustee, and in 85 it was Pam, my mother, and Barbara Hall. The mid-80s, in this city, 3 young women running and getting elected in a downtown ward. Pam was always at the front, and for my mother, Pam was a near and dear friend and colleague. And when I arrived just 3 years ago, Pam took that place of my mother around this chamber. And so certainly she was a colleague and an activist and a friend, but with Pam's passing to me, it felt like losing a member of my family. And she's missed, and her work carries on in all of us. And to Pam's family behind me, who are, I can't imagine the level of grief and loss they must feel. I know they will find comfort in each other and hopefully hope in the work that we will do. But this is it's a shocking loss.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Layton.
Thank you very much. And on behalf of myself and my family, I'd like to offer my sincerest condolences to the family, to the close friends, and to her colleagues in her office, her ward office here at City Hall. I know that she thought so highly of you and your judgment and your dedication. Unlike Councillor Cressy, our families weren't always on the same ticket. There was actually a point in time when the Laytons and McConnells weren't arm in arm at the electoral box, but the one place they always were was in this building, and they fought side by side, and despite those differences, they both remained the closest of friends, the closest of allies, and of collaborators. I know that I would be remiss if I didn't speak of one other opportunity. I got to know Councillor McConnell, Pam, really well, and that was in my experience with her at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. I've had the privilege of serving as a committee member there, so I've often had the opportunity to travel with Pam and to go to small towns across the country, speaking with councillors and mayors and reeves and chairs and all of these various positions that are held in office and on the local level. She was so proud and such a strong advocate of the municipal level of governance, and in particular of women's involvement and participation in electoral politics locally. She traveled around the world, and I'm sure that and I know that that had a significant impact on her health over the years because of the amount of travel and hard work that she was putting in, and those hours in the Ukraine and then back here within weeks at committee meetings, or within days at committee meetings, sometimes even hours. She was regarded, or is regarded, so highly at FCM by the leadership throughout that organization. I think the only reason why she probably didn't have a stint as president of that organization is twofold. One, the way the rest of the country looks at Toronto, and two, the dedication she had for particular files. She would not have wanted to give up the opportunity to make the change that she was making around the world for women around the world, and their involvement in politics. That speaks volumes of her character. It wasn't about being the one with the power. It was about the person making the change happen. And I was so fortunate to have known her through that experience in here in City Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Layton. Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you, Chair. This is the first time that we've all been together since we were together and heard the shocking news on July 7th that Pam had passed away, middle of our council meeting. And I do want to express my condolences to the family, to Pam's dear friends, to Pam's fantastic staff that had to pick up and carry on in the office, and also to all the city staff that worked so closely and just loved Pam so much, particularly in the planning department, and the number of notes and letters that came from planners that were sent to me and were sent to the family, just saying what a guide she was and how much she'd helped, and her approach, how important it was to them to work with her. Pam has been a family friend for a long time. For myself and John, she's very much missed. I missed hearing, "Hi there, it's Pam," on my voicemail, and talking to her at night, in the morning, about different things that we were doing. At the church, I said that Pam moved mountains, but she also did bulldoze expressways, the Gardner being one of them. She didn't bulldoze it as far as she'd like to have bulldozed it. She wanted to bulldoze it quite a few more meters. But when I was on my bike coming back from the X, I realized, my God, she took that ramp down at York Quay. Like, that is a big one. And very quietly, because she was her ward, but somebody else was talking about it. But you know what? Pam did it. And so we're now going to have a completely reconfigured area in that part of the city, and a beautiful part of our waterfront. She was a waterfront champion. She knew every file on her waterfront. Affordable housing champion. And I think she'll be very missed by you, Councillor Bailão, for that very reason. And also, she was a stalwart stalwart champion for women's participation in political life, of which she was a great example, great, fierce example that will be very much missed by all of us and by this council in this year to come and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Councillor Davis.
Thank you. I, too, want to, of course, express condolences. It's shaken all of us, Pam's passing. And I think I only would like to say that I, and I'm sure everyone around this table and all of council, will commit themselves to carry on Pam's work. There's a lot more to do. She will expect us to make sure that the poverty reduction strategy is implemented. She will expect that the children's agenda and childcare, housing, all of those issues that she cared about so passionately continue to be advanced here by the rest of us who remain. So to Pam, we commit to you to keep up your work, and we will make a difference on your behalf. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Mahevik.
Thank you very much. First, of course, I'd like to express my condolences to the family, to the friends, to colleagues, to all of us. I can tell you that, while I'm a councillor on the west end of the city, I cannot tell you how many people have come up to me in my ward expressing condolences to me. And it hasn't been one person, two persons. It's been like literally every second person over the last month has said, we feel your loss, Joe Mahevik. And I think it's a way of saying really that Pam's reach was beyond the fishbowl of her own particular ward, but she did have a citywide reach. And people had stories that went back to school board days, to amalgamation days, to various fights and debates that we've had on council. I've known Pam and worked with Pam since pre-amalgamation days. We were struggling against amalgamation, 1994 to 1997. And then we became, of course, colleagues there after that. And I think it's right on. Her reach was national. The mayor of the city of Kitchener came to the funeral, purposefully came to the funeral because he recognized it was a way of FCM recognizing the contribution that she made on the national level to women's issues and to international democratic movements. She will be missed. I think we need to find a way as a council to honor her legacy with some kind of naming possibility, and I'm sure that some people are already putting thought to that. And yeah, I think as well, Janet is right that we need to continue her good work, and I look forward to doing that as a way of keeping her memory alive.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ballow.
Thank you. I'd like to offer my condolences to the family. And a lot of people talked about the things that Pam did, and we see so much of what she did in the city. But I think that what people don't see, it's actually a huge mark. It's what people don't see. And there's two things that for me are attached to Pam's, is getting things done inside City Hall. I learned how to get things done inside City Hall, how to get to that island, how to get to the 23 votes with Pam, and that's what she was all about. If there was somebody that could get something done inside the city, that was Pam. And it was motivating others to get it done. I didn't come from a family of politicians. I didn't come with all this, ego. I came to this country and I was 15. So when I get here, yes, my legs were shaking. And when Pam called me to her office and said, Anna, we're going to have to stop that sale of the CCHC. You're going to have to do it. You're going to have to front it. I said, how the heck am I going to do that? And she said, yes, you can. You will do it. We'll be there with you. And that's the kind of things that she did in this city. And to many women, like Councillor Layton said, at FCM, is the strength that she gives other people that sometimes people don't see. That's the work that she left in this city. And that's what we also need to continue. So my condolences.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fragedakis.
I try not to cry.
I have tissue if you need it.
Thanks. So I'm going to offer my condolences again to the family. You know, I want to thank you for sharing Pam with us and with the city, because I think we're better off for it. What a sacrifice that's been for you guys. I knew of Pam long before I came to City Hall, because she was my school board trustee. And her integrity and her passion for the less fortunate and just her sheer stamina were always an inspiration to me. I really think she elevated the conversation at City Hall, which sometimes actually can get quite low, but Pam never sunk to that level. Her leadership on the poverty reduction file, I think, is really going to shine a light on the city's future. And actually, it's going to serve as a monument greater than anything. And again, I just want to thank you for sharing her with us.
Thank you. Councillor Perks?
Jim, Heather Ann, thank you for giving so much of Pam's time to the city. There are a lot of stories about Pam. I'd like to just share two quick ones. When we were consulting on doing the poverty reduction strategy, Pam insisted that there be consultation sessions for people with lived experience of poverty. And there was one in the West End. And as politicians, people often get to know like the head of the BIA or the chair of the Residents Association. These are people you have to know. Well, here's Pam in the West End of the city in a meeting full of people with lived experience of poverty, and she knew every single one of them before the meeting. They all came up, "Hi, Pam, how you doing?" Bonnie was there, all kinds of folks. And Pam took a different path in terms of whose opinions were valid in the city of Toronto, who needed power, whose voices had to be amplified. And I learned that lesson very strongly watching her do that. The other story, as some of you may know, I have an activist history from before I got here, and there was once this big struggle here at Kirkland, around Kirkland Lake. And I was in the audience. I had a beard then and long hair. We had decided that we were going to disrupt this meeting and get arrested. Now, there's a protocol here when the chair of the speaker bangs the gavel and calls the meeting. All the politicians are supposed to go to the back and exit the chamber. We're all supposed to clear the chamber. Well, what Pam did is run into the crowd and link arms with us so the cops couldn't drag us away as easily. Again, amplifying other voices, other opinions. It's true, Pam was a master navigator in the waters inside this building, but it's the way that she built relationships outside this building and brought them in here that made her such a tremendous gift to the family. So again, thank you for sharing so much of her time with us. The city's better for it.
Thank you, Councillor McMahon.
Thank you very much. So I met Pam in 2010 as a rookie when she invited the new female councillors over to her home to introduce us to the wizened, I'm not going to say old, I say veteran city councillors for a meet and greet. And it was a warm, hospitable, generous gesture, especially for us. We didn't know anything or anyone, and that's what she did best. She was a bridge builder, and I was in awe of her from that moment. And I'm very thankful and honored that I got to witness her at the Birksey Park opening. And I think the mayor was going to postpone the opening, and Pam said, come hell or high water, basically, I'm going to be there. And I watched her, and I watched the crowd, and she came in. She was a rock star. She was on oxygen. She went up to the microphone and tossed her oxygen over on the mayor's lap. He's like wondering what to do. He doesn't have first aid. What's he going to do with it? And she, in her state of health that day, I can't even believe, she stood up there and gave the most glorious, beautiful speech. She remembered every single person who was involved in that complicated, beautiful city building project. And the iron founders from Alabama were even there. She knew them. It was beautiful to see such a city builder, and the city has a huge void. And thank you for sharing her with us.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Matlow.
Much has been said about Pam's remarkable ability as an advocate, and all of which I concur with. I've experienced, I've seen it. When I've worked with her, I've been just in awe of how she's able to just put the pieces together. But I want to share with you two brief thoughts. One a little story. One of Pam as a teacher that I observed. I was roughly a year ago. I was in Cabbagetown with my family. I was there with my 4-year-old daughter and my wife. And at Riverdale Farm, they were having I think there was a festival in Cabbagetown. You would know it better than I would. But they were having a big event. And Pam went up on a stage that they set up at Riverdale Farm. And there were a crowd of kids, including my own. And they were captivated by Pam, as Pam talked about the animals and came up with various stories. And just like she captivates us at council, she was able to do that with a group of 4-year-olds to 8-year-olds. She was just beautiful, and she wasn't rushing it. She didn't care about glad handing or doing the crowds. She just wanted to spend time with the kids. And I loved her both as a colleague but also as a dad that day. And on that note, the other thought I wanted to share with you is this is going to be my very first community council where I haven't talked about family with my seatmate. It's true. It's all these things that we've talked about, historians will be able to read in the newspaper about her advocacy against poverty, rejuvenating and revitalizing Toronto's neighborhoods, social equality. But her most proud and important work was her family. And I just want you to know that even when she was here thinking about the people's business, her thoughts were always deeply on you. And my deepest condolences.
Thank you very much, Councillor Matlow. I would like to take a moment and have a recess, and we will reconvene the meeting in about 5 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. I'm going to slam it. We'll be bringing the meeting back to order. If I can ask members of Community Council to take their seat. We'll be turning our attention to the business of Community Council. We're looking at the agenda on the goldenrod papers. Are there, on the yellow or the goldenrod? Actually, not yet, but we will be beginning our agenda on items starting at item number 50. But before I do that, I'd like to call for declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Seeing none, thank you very much. Can I get a mover to adopt the confirmations of the minutes? That would be Councillor Layton. Any opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. For those members in the general public who are very interested in speaking to any of the items on the agenda today, if I can ask you to identify yourself to our clerk, they will make sure that your name is listed, and we will have you properly recorded on the speakers list. We do? Okay. Okay, thank you very much. So we are going to page 102, which is item number TE 26.50, appointments to Business Improvement Area Boards of Management. This affects a number of wards. I believe that there may be a motion that will be presented shortly. Are there any members of the public who'd like to speak to this matter? Okay, seeing none. Who has I was informed that there is a motion. I could move that motion if this is something that's prepared by the clerk.
Yeah, it's a very minor change. It's in bold.
Okay.
Just decrease the Danforth Village reps from 15 to 12.
Okay, thank you very much. So there's a motion I've just placed on the floor. It's rather technical. The change is Danforth Village reducing the members from 15 members to 12 members. That's the only change. All those in favor of the motion?
Mayor Margaret, are you okay with that?
Any opposed? Okay, so that carries. Thank you. Adopt the item as amended.
Sorry, I have a question.
Sorry, there's a question?
Yeah, sorry, who? Oh, okay, I was wondering if it came from one of the councilors, but they,
Okay, do you still have a question? Or the question is answered?
are the local councilors okay with that?
Okay, so held by Councillor Davis?
Sorry.
Okay, held by Councillor Davis.
Oh.
Our next item is TE 26.51, 88 Queen Street East, Public Art Plan. I would like to move to defer this to October 2017 and have it come back then. All those in favor? Okay, any opposed? That carries. Thank you. TE 26.53, designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880, fire routes 355 St. Clair Avenue West, Ward 21.
Move approval?
Sir, what happened to item 52?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, my apologies, folks. Going back to item 52, designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880, fire routes 914 DuPont Street, 934 DuPont Street, Ward 19.
To adopt the staff recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Now we're moving to point 53, designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880, fire routes 355 St. Clair Avenue West, Ward 21.
Move approval of the staff recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. TE 26.54, designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880, fire routes 1080 Bay Street and 65 St. Mary Street, Ward 27. I would be moving the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. TE 26.55, 822, 838, and 860 to 862 Richmond Street West, official plan amendment application, preliminary report, Ward 19.
Yes, I'd like to move the staff recommendations with our customary expansion of the notification area.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion amendment? Okay. Any opposed? Report as amended? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. TE 26.56, 30 Merton Street, official plan amendment and zoning amendment applications, preliminary report, Ward 22.
I'll move the staff recommendation along with the expanded notice area.
Okay. Motion's before you. All those in favor? Any opposed? Report as amended? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. TE 26.57, 1925, 1951 Young Street, 17 to 21 Millwood Road, and 22 Davisville Avenue, official plan amendment and zoning amendment applications, preliminary report, Ward 22.
I'll move the recommendation by staff, the expanded notification area, and just to kind of a heads up to everyone, watch this one closely. Not only is there a significant concern about the heightened massing, but also the applicant wants to delve deeply into the neighborhood designation area of our official plan onto Millwood. And if they do this, this could actually jeopardize the integrity of our official plan and our neighborhood designation. So this isn't just a fight about height and density. We want a redevelopment here, but we want it done in the right way. And it'll affect your wards if they get their way.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. All those in favor of the amendment? Any opposed? Report as amended? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. TE 26.58, 1 Front Street West, City's initiated zoning amendment, preliminary report, Ward 28. Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you. To adopt staff recommendations with the motion for expanded notification.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, amended report? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. TE 26.559, Young and Gerard Focus Area Review, Ward 27. I would move to adopt the recommendations in the staff report. Oh, sorry. Sorry. So my apologies. I move to expand the notification area. And so that motion is now before you. All those in favor of the amendment? All those in favor of the amended report? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. TE 26.60, King Spadina Secondary Plan Update, Draft Policy Directions Report, Ward 20.
I'll move staff recommendations.
Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. Okay. TE 26.61, City Services and Intensifying Areas, Toronto and East York District, affecting all wards.
You hold that, please.
Yeah, I will hold that. Am I okay? So clerks, please note that I'll be holding that. I will be holding 61. TE 26.62, Construction Staging Area 33 Dunfield Avenue and 44 Lillian Street, Ward 22.
I'll support the staff recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. TE 26.63, construction staging area, Phase 1, Adelaide Street West, 19 Duncan Street, Ward 20.
I have an amendment, which I'll move, and with that, I'll move the staff recommendations.
Okay. This is item number 63.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor? And the report as amended? Okay. Any opposed? Carried. T 26.64, construction staging area, Phase 1, 19 Duncan Street. Ward 20, is this the same item?
Yeah, and this is 64, and again, I have an amendment, and with that, I can move the staff recommendations. It's to approve a sidewalk as part of it.
Okay, it's getting on the screens. There you go. All those in favor of the amendment? Okay. Any opposed? Item as amended? None opposed, carried. Thank you. TE 26.65, construction staging area time extension, 31 to 35 Dundonald Street, Ward 27. I will be reluctantly moving the recommendations in the staff report to continue obstructing the roadway. So, please note that there's a motion on the screen. You've seen it before. It's a standard clause regarding construction site clearing, making sure that it's power washed, making sure that it's safe and debris-free, maintaining the bike lanes, installing appropriate signage to inform drivers and cyclists of any changes to cycling lanes. If there's no cycling lanes, then directing the applicant to install sherrills to ensure that motorists and cyclists will learn to share the road safely. Ensuring that the existing sidewalks or proposed pedestrian walkway has proper lighting to ensure safety and visibility at all times of the day and night, directing the applicant to consult and communicate with all communities affected, including those who will require parking, road or occupancy impacts, and installing appropriate signage, converging mirrors, and directing the applicant to establish a construction management working group that meets monthly, which invites local stakeholders, including transportation services, MLS staff, Toronto buildings, adjacent neighbors, local residents associations, and local BIAs, and then finally directing them to construct a publicly accessible website with all regular construction updates. We're trying to manage construction impacts in Ward 27.
So I'd like to vote against it.
Okay, you can vote against the whole thing. Okay, what's that? Yes, we can. Yeah, I forgot about this one. Okay, so all those in favor of creating safer conditions while we occupy the roads, in favor, thank you. Any opposed? Report as amended? Oh, sorry, we have one person opposed?
Do you want to have a recorded vote then?
Did you want it recorded?
I'd like to be recorded.
Okay, so we're going to begin this again. Item number 65. And all those in 65, all those in favor. All those in favor of the motion as the motion for the amendment. Okay. Any opposed? Okay. Those in favor of the report as amended. Okay. This is a recorded vote.
Yes.
Councillor Davis, Councillor Mihevik, Councillor Fletcher, Councillor Cressy, Councillor Wong-Tam, Councillor Layton, Councillor Perks, Councillor Matlow, Councillor McMahon. Any opposed? Councillor Fragedakis. That carries. TE 26.66, construction staging area time extension, Phipps Street. Same thing, there's another motion before you. It's exactly the same as the previous one. All those in favor of the motion amendment? There's a question? Okay. Go ahead.
I just have a question, Speaker. There are a number of these extensions, and I'm wondering if you can tell us why they require these types of extensions for the construction. Are they behind, or they didn't?
Yes, so I believe Well, I'll try to answer that question unless the question is directed for
I can
staff.
ask staff, why are there's 3 or more major construction sites with extensions and impacts to traffic and pedestrians, so I don't know why, is there a problem with the construction on our side? Is there a problem that the developer didn't manage their time? Or that they just assume that they have all the time in the world to construct a building? These are very big developments.
I think in each case, there is different reasons at different sites for the extension. It's not on our side, it's complications that they've had during construction.
And do they have to pay extra now, or is that just the same old?
No, they'd still have to pay extra. They have to pay, for the occupation of the road, they have to pay per square meter on a daily basis, so it's still.
But there's no new fee because it's now an expansion of the time that they had their original application.
Well, it's time-based, so the longer they're out there, the more money they'd have to pay to occupy the road.
But there's no escalation of fees.
No, that's
because
correct.
They're now on to an extension period.
That's correct, yeah.
And what is the fee for road occupation?
I'd have to look it up. I don't have it in my head. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of the amendment on the screen? Any opposed? That carries. The report as amended?
Recorded vote.
Okay, recorded vote. Councillor Davis, are you supportive? Okay, Councillor Davis, Councillor Mihevc, Councillor Fletcher, Councillor Cressy, Councillor Wong-Tam, Councillor Layton, yes, Councillor Perks, Councillor Mallow, Councillor McMahon. Any opposed? Councillor Fragedakis, that carries. T 26.67, construction staging area time extension 40 Wellesley Street East. I'll be placing that same amendment back on the screen. All those in favor of the amendment? Any opposed? That carries. The report as amended, there's a request for a recorded vote. Councillor Davis, Councillor Mihevc, Councillor Fletcher, Councillor Cressy, Councillor Wong-Tam, Councillor Layton, Councillor Perks, Councillor Mallow, Councillor McMahon. Any opposed? Councillor Fragedakis. Councillor Fletcher?
I'm gaining ground.
Okay. I apologize. I recognize you in the affirmative. Please note that Councillor Fletcher was in the negative. Okay, so T 26.68, construction staging area time extension 50 Wellesley Street East, Ward 27. I would move to place the amendment on the screen. It's the same amendment of the prior 3 items. All those in favor? We'll wait for the amendment first. Okay. All those in favor? Okay. Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Report as amended.
Recorded vote.
Request for a recorded vote. All those in favor? Councillor Davis, Councillor Mihevc, Councillor Fletcher, Councillor Cressy, Councillor Wong-Tam, Councillor Layton, Councillor Perks, Councillor Mallow, Councillor McMahon. Any opposed? Councillor Fragedakis. Okay, that carries. TE 26.69, construction staging area Phase 1, Yonge Street and Bloor Street West on 1 Bloor West, Ward 27. I would like to move the amendment on the screen, so you have that motion before you again. We're doing everything we can to try to bring it all into some sense of order. Very difficult in Ward 27 when you literally have a construction site every second block, and I would say entire blocks. All those in favor of the amendment? Okay, any opposed? That carries. There's a question. Sorry, go ahead. You're going to have to raise your hand a little bit faster. Sorry.
Just a question. Have you ever considered an escalation fee for an extra 6 months that, with a directed fee towards anything in the city, Councillor? Because this is, you're right, these are major construction sites and it's now a major mess for another 6 months and during the winter. And it appears to be at the standard fee as the original application. Is that something you've ever had a conversation with the staff about?
Councillor Fletcher, Councillor Fletcher, yes, this is something that we have had discussions on. The impacts around construction staging and road occupancies are set citywide. So this is a matter of working this through the process. I believe that staff have already escalated those fees the first time round. We also tried to do the best that we can to remove any type of occupancy on the public right-of-way, whether it's a sidewalk or the roadway. I know that staff give it very serious consideration before they even grant the road occupancy. It goes actually under a lot of scrutiny. And I believe that those fees have already been escalated at least once during my term since 2010. And I believe that was even because of the great advocacy of the local communities that were affected.
I didn't mean the escalation in general of the fees. I'm speaking about an extension, that if you don't, it's, have you ever had that conversation? That when you're coming in for an extension, it's now a new fee because you didn't have a, you didn't apply properly, and now we are having to scramble.
You'll notice that there are a number of requests for time extensions, and that's largely because we're no longer giving long extensions up front. We're trying to force the developer, the contractor on site to finish in a shorter period of time, so they may request a 3 or 4 year occupancy. We've actually been reducing it to 2.5 years to see if we can push them ahead of agenda and schedule. Oftentimes, what you're seeing here in terms of the request for the extension is because they simply can't do it.
Right. I understand. Thank you for all, this is a lot of work for you, Kristen.
Thank you very much. Not a problem. There's a question of staff.
Actually, my question is to the planning staff, actually, about the approvals to the lot line that force then the transportation staff to actually grant these road occupancies. Have you ever considered not approving them right to the lot line? Maybe they can then stage their construction on their own property.
For many of these developments, through you, through the chair, for many of these developments, there are setbacks at grade or above grade. So this, in other situations, you may have a heritage building that's at the lot line, and our preference is that the heritage buildings remain in situ. So we have to look at the particular circumstances.
There's no heritage
but we
building,
wouldn't necessarily,
unfortunately, at 1 Bloor
I'm
Street
just
West.
replying in general that we wouldn't
demolished it.
necessarily move the building back just for construction management reasons. There would have to be a concept for that block or that area that generally encourages the buildings to be set back to create a pedestrian zone.
So if I could just say that at 1 Bloor Street West, there is no heritage building because they demolished the building.
There are some heritage buildings on the site that are being preserved, and other areas where it's being set back substantially beyond 6 meters. Even with that setback provision, the developments often build to the lot line below grade. So there is typically a period of time where street occupation is inevitably required. And this is an ongoing discussion with transportation services and the industry to move toward other solutions, including putting these trailers up on stilts and other methods. I will tell you, though, that even in New York City, you know, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach, and oftentimes there are street occupation permits and lanes taken up even in New York. So it's a very complex, it's a very real problem. I think what the Community Council is talking about here is very real and a great concern to the way the downtown functions and moves. But it's something that we have to continue to work with, led by Transportation Services, in discussion with the industry to get new ways of doing business that is less impactful on the community.
So I'm going to shift my questions to Transportation Services and ask, so what kind of consideration is being given to actually staging the construction, not in the public right-of-way, but up onto the second level so that it's actually not staged in the actual road? And how are those discussions coming along?
So we do have discussions with the industry, and we have looked at practices in other cities as well. And the bottom line is, as Greg had mentioned, we look at every site on a site-by-site basis, and in most cases, they do need to occupy the right-of-way at some point during their construction, especially when they're building lot line to lot line. So there's no magic solution to it. If we can find a solution, then certainly the occupation of the right-of-way is our last resort.
We'll continue this conversation later.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fragedakis. Are there any other members who have questions for staff, or is it a question of the mover? Seeing none, I recognize that Councillor Matlow would like to speak.
Yeah, there's a conversation that's happening today that we've had many times before. I personally have moved a motion in the past to request staff to report on if there are ways to be able to prohibit staging construction areas on public right-of-way. Because it has such an impact on our ability to move around, and it does seem unfair to most residents. As I know Councillor Fragedakis, I believe she's, suggesting that, why should we be giving up our property, our public property, to a private developer who's making a ton of money? The reality is, and I just want to say this about Councillor Wong Tam, these questions are being raised around staging areas in Councillor Wong Tam's ward. I know Councillor Wong Tam to be a councillor who does not want to have these staging areas on the right-of-way. In fact, she will do everything possible to avoid it. Where she and I and others are told that legally we will simply just get sued and the developer will have their way because they have an approval for the development either at the council level or at the OMB, then our job responsibly is to mitigate the heck out of it so that we can protect the public interest and our collective ability to be able to get around the city. What I see Councillor Wong doing in every one of these items, and this is why I've supported each one on a public vote, on a recorded vote, is because while I, like Councillor Wong Tam and Councillor Fragedakis, and I would imagine everybody at this table, strongly disagree that a private developer who's making a ton of money should just automatically have the right to take over whether it be sidewalks or road lanes. Until there are laws that are changed at the Ontario level and until there is substantive action that we don't have the reins over, we need to protect the public by mitigating the circumstances for where these staging areas are approved. That's what Councillor Wong Tam has done, not only thoughtfully in these items, but creatively. She comes up with, and her staff, they come up with ideas that we all just want to copy because they're brilliant, they're helpful. I even, I quietly whispered to Councillor Perks earlier that I see Councillor Wong Tam trying to obstruct the obstruction. So I say this only because I believe that Councillor Fragedakis is voting against these out of good conscience because she has conviction against allowing the public right-of-way to be occupied. I share that conviction. But I also want to make it known that Councillor Wong Tam does too. And the only reason that she is moving these motions is because she's trying to find a creative way to protect the public interest if legally these developers are unfairly getting their way.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mallow. I no longer have to speak. Councillor Fragedakis.
So now I feel compelled to speak. I mean, I appreciate that Councillor Wong Tam is trying to mitigate the impacts of these large construction projects on the people of Toronto and the residents in her ward. And yet at the same time, I'm voting against them because if I want to renovate my house and I've got permission from the Committee of Adjustment to build to my lot line, I would not be able to go and stage in the public right-of-way and block everyone else from the road and the sidewalk. So I find it a little unusual that we continue to grant these permits to people, to private developers, to occupy the public right-of-way for great lengths of time without actually even increasing the fees. It's the same fee that they had under the initial occupancy permit. I think that there should be a penalty because there doesn't seem to be an incentive for them to speed up their construction. So I'm voting against the item, not as a vote against Councillor Wong Tam. It's not personal. I'm just a little frustrated, and I think many, many Torontonians are quite frustrated by the number of construction projects that are going on in this city that are taking much longer than anticipated.
Anyone else who'd like to speak? Okay, so the motion is before you. I think everyone recognizes that this is probably an issue that is not necessarily resolved on the floor of Community Council, especially since there are processes around this and that we had voted on these matters in citywide bylaws at City Council earlier during the last term. So all those in favor again for the motion? Any opposed? That carries. All those in favor of the amended report, a recorded vote has been requested. Councillor Davis, Councillor Mihevik, Councillor Fletcher, Councillor Cressy, Councillor Wong-Tam, Councillor Layton, Councillor Perks, Councillor Matlow, Councillor McMahon. Councillor Fragedakis is recorded in the negative. That carries. If I can just remind members of Community Council, we currently have 141 items on the floor. These items before us are hopefully quick items. We will get to the time items very shortly, beginning at 10 o'clock, and 10 o'clock items are piling up. We're on track to setting a record for the number of items, which I believe is 144. So, all that being said, I anticipate that we will break the record of the number of items on the agenda. So I'm going to proceed and try to go as quickly as possible because we have members of the public who are wanting to speak to us. TE 26.70, construction staging area 53 Ontario Street, Ward 28. Councillor Fletcher.
Just going to ask that to be held. The staff are going to report on permit parking implications.
Okay, thank you very much. That is held for Councillor Fletcher. TE 26.71, potential policy changes and/or bylaw amendments required to implement residential on-street permit parking on streets and that do not have permit parking in Toronto and East York District. And there are a number of speakers, so we will hold that particular item for those speakers. Okay. I can hold that, but there's also a number of speakers. So moving on, TE 26.72, realignment of permit parking area 1A to exclude the development address of 243 Perth Avenue, Ward 18. Councillor Bailao.
Approve staff recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. TE 26.73, a realignment of permit parking area 7E to exclude the development address of 875 887 Queen Street East, Ward 30.
Approve staff recommendations to exclude it.
All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. TE 26.74, removal of on-street accessible parking space, August 2017, non-delegated matter, Ward 30.
Approve recommendation.
All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. TE 26.75, installation and removal of on-street accessible parking spaces, August 2017, delegated, affecting a number of wards. Who would like to move that? Councillor Cressy, moving the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. TE 26.76, school bus loading zone, Rose Avenue, Ward 28. Councillor Fletcher.
Yes, approve staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. TE 26.77, road alterations, Jones Avenue and Strathcona Avenue, Ward 30.
To approve staff recommendations, and I'd just like to thank staff for going back and looking at a very creative way to narrow the intersection and accommodate the bike lane on Jones Avenue. So
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. TE 26.78, school bus loading zone 780 Kingston Road, Ward 32. Councillor McMahon.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move staff recommendation for this.
Okay. All those in
Our
favor?
neighborhood safe.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. TE 26.79, student pickup drop-off area, Lawler Avenue, Ward 32.
Sorry, I'd like to move staff recommendations.
Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. TE 26.80, parking amendments, Alpine Avenue, Ward 18.
Move staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. TE 26.81, parking amendments, Concord Avenue, Ward 19.
Yes, I'd like to move the staff recommendations, please.
Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. TE 26.82, parking amendment, East Liberty Street, Ward 19.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move the staff recommendations.
Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. Thank you. TE 26.83, parking amendment, Hannah Avenue, Ward 19.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move the staff recommendations, and with this, this is a bunch of parking reconfigurations in Liberty Village. So park in the green P lots. Don't keep driving around because there's going to be no parking.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Layton. You keep working on that. No, it's not. It's just recognizing how difficult it is to manage the parking in Liberty Village. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. Thank you. TE 26.84, parking amendments, Arlington Avenue, Ward 21. Councillor Mihevik. 84, Arlington Avenue. Okay, motion to approve staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. TE 26.85, parking amendments, Carlton Street, Ward 27. I would like to move the recommendations in the report. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. TE 26.86, parking amendments, Clooney Drive, Ward 27. I would like to move the recommendations in the staff report. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. TE 26.87, parking amendments, Cody Avenue, Ward 30.
Defer that to October, please.
Okay. Motion to defer. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. TE 26.88, parking amendments, Craven Road, Ward 32.
Kat, but I'm going to have to defer this to October as well. I'm waiting to hear back from some community members. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much. All those in favor of the deferral? Any opposed? Carried. TE 26.89, short-term parking, Melville Avenue, Ward 19.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to move the staff recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor, staff recs? Okay, any opposed? That carries. TE 26.90, short-term parking, Roehampton Avenue, Ward 22.
I move these staff recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor, staff recs? Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. TE 26.91, short-term parking, Gough Avenue, Ward 30.
I'll move that, Madam Chair, and also thank the staff for moving so quickly to get this daycare drop-off spot sorted out for the community. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Wonderful. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. TE 26.92, pay and display parking, Tweedsmuir Avenue, Ward 21.
I'll move the staff recommendations with thanks to staff.
Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. TE 26.93, traffic control signals, College Street and Gladstone Avenue, Ward 18.
I will need to defer that to November.
Okay. All those in favor of the deferral? Okay. Any opposed? That carries. We'll see that item again in a few months. TE 26.94, turn prohibitions, 245, 255 College Street, Ward 20.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. TE 26.95, mid-block pedestrian traffic control signal, Dupont Street between Bathurst Street and Palmerston Avenue, Ward 20.
I have a motion, if it can be on the screen, which is to approve the installation.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion before us, the amendment? Okay. And any opposed? Seeing none, thank you. Item as the amendment, as amended. All those in favor, item as amended? Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. Thank you. TE 26.96, two-way operations, Charles Street West, Ward 27. I will need to move a deferral until the November 14th meeting, and sadly, we'll have to come back to that. All those in favor of the deferral? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. TE 26.97, stopping prohibition, Grosvenor Street, Ward 27. I would like to move the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. Thank you. TE 26.98, all-way stop control, Kings Park Boulevard and Woody Crest Avenue, Ward 29.
Yes, I have an alternate recommendation. The staff can put it up on the screen. It's to actually approve the installation of an always stop control at this intersection.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion before you? Any opposed? Seeing none. Item as amended. All those in favor? Okay. Any opposed? Seeing none. That carries. Thank you very much. TE 26.99, pedestrian crossover relocation Carlisle Avenue and Langley Avenue, Ward 30. Okay, motion on the floor to defer this item till November. All those in favor? Okay, any opposed? That carries, thank you. TE 26.100, stop control, Hollywood Crescent and Lady Kirk Avenue, Ward 32.
Sorry, members, if you would indulge me, I didn't have my glasses on earlier, and this is the item I want to defer till October, and TE 26.88, I would move staff recommendations.
Okay, so, yeah, so why
I
don't
don't
we
mind,
vote- why
thanks.
don't we
First glitch of the day.
Okay. We will vote on item 100 now, and so there's a motion for us to defer this
To October.
till October.
Thank you.
All those in favor of the deferral on item number 100 to October, please indicate your support. Any opposed? Okay, seeing none, that carries. And then can I get a motion to reopen item .88?
Right, 26.88.
Okay. Councillor Fragedakis? Okay. And now we are going to vote
And
on-
then I would move staff recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor of adopting staff recommendations? Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. Thank you. That was a quick fix to that glitch. TE 26.101, speed hump poll results, Grant Street, Ward 30.
I'd like to move the alternate recommendations, please.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay. Item as amended? See, any opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. Thank you. TE 26.102, speed hump poll results, Hastings Avenue, Ward 30.
I'll move the alternate recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Item as amended? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. TE 26.103, speed hump poll results, Salter Street, Ward 30.
I'll move the alternate recommendations, please.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Item as amended? Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Thank you very much.
I put them on early.
TE 26.104, traffic calming speed humps, Rankin Crescent, Ward 18.
Move alternate recommendations.
All those in, oops, we'll wait till that gets on the screen. All those in favor? Any opposed? Item as amended? Indicate your support. Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. T 26.105, traffic calming speed humps, Shirley Street, Ward 18.
Move alternate recommendations.
The alternative recs have been moved. It's coming on the screen. There it is. All those in favor? Any opposed? Item as amended? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. T 26.106, traffic calming speed humps, St. Clarence Avenue, Ward 18.
Move alternate recommendations.
It's on the screen. All those in favor? Any opposed? Item as amended? Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. Thank you. TE 26.107, traffic calming Dearborn Avenue, Ward 21.
Yes, Ward 21, approve number 1 and receive number 2. No, there aren't any alternate recommendations. Number 1 basically denies the installation of traffic calming, which is what the street decided. And number 2, request the general manager to review the feasibility of constructing a pedestrian sidewalk.
Councillor
We've done that, and so it's, the appropriate motion is to receive.
Yeah. So Councillor Mihevc, there's a request from the clerk that you hold this down. There's a technical way of doing it. They're going to consult with you.
Okay, great, I'll hold it down.
Yep. TE 26.108, traffic calming speed humps, Ridge Hill Drive, Ward 21.
Move approval of the staff
Okay.
recommendations.
Moving the staff recommendations.
Which allows-
All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. Thank you. T 26.109, traffic calming speed humps, Witchwood Avenue, Ward 21.
Yes, amend recommendation number 1, to change the word deny to approve, and then pass the recommendations.
So what are you doing? Councillor Mahevik, I'm going to ask that you hold this one down as well, and the clerks will work with you on a motion.
Great, thank you.
Okay. And if I can just remind members to prepare their motions in advance. TE 26.110, traffic calming speed humps, Birch Avenue, Ward 22.
I move the alternate recommendation to proceed with the polling.
Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Item as amended. Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. T 26.111, traffic calming speed humps, Bain Avenue, Ward 30.
Move the staff, I'm sorry, alternate recommendations.
Okay. Motion is before you on the screen. All those in favor? Okay. Any opposed? Item as amended. Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. Thank you. TE 26.112, traffic calming speed humps, Hampstead Avenue, Ward 31.
Yes, I have the next 5, which are all alternate recommendations. So I'd like to move the alternate recommendations.
Right. All those in favor? Any opposed? Item as amended. Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. TEs 26.113, traffic calming speed humps, Jonath Drive, Ward 31.
Move adoption of the alternate recommendations. Sorry.
Amendments on the screen. All those in favor? Any opposed? Item as amended. Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. TE 26.114, traffic calming speed humps, Norlong Boulevard, Ward 31.
Move the alternate recommendations.
Motion's on the screen. All those in favor? Any opposed? Item as amended. Any opposed? Seeing none, that is adopted. Thank you. TE 26.115, traffic calming speed humps, Salmon Avenue, Ward 31.
I'll move the alternate recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Item as amended. Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. Thank you. TE 26.116, traffic calming speed humps, Wolverley Boulevard, Ward 31.
I'll move the alternate recommendations.
It's on the screen. All those in favor? Any opposed? Item as amended. Any opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. Thank you. TE 26.117, proposed installation of speed bump public lane west of Spadina Road between Heath Street West and Bantry Avenue, Ward 21.
Thank you. I'll move the staff recommendations, which is to install 1 speed bump. So approve the staff recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. TE 26.118, Bollards, Salter Street, Ward 30.
Just going to hold that, Madam Chair. I'm just working on a motion with staff.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. TE 26.119, Glenara Road, request for no parking bylaw single spot, Ward 21.
Move the recommendation.
Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. TE 26.120, Dubourne Avenue, request to extend no parking bylaw, Ward 21.
Move the recommendation before you.
Okay, all those in favor? Any opposition? Seeing that carries, thank you. TE 26.121, reopening of TE 24.81 and rescinding all-way stop controls at Glen Road and Binsgarth Road, Ward 27. I will hold this item for speakers. TE 26.122, nominations for appointment to the Board of Management of the Eastview Neighborhood Community Center, Ward 30.
I'd like to move to approve the new members of the board and, of course, thank all of these citizens for serving on our AOC board.
All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. TE 26.123, nominations for appointment to the Board of Management of the Ralph Thornton Community Center, Ward 30.
Again, I'll move the approval of these new members of the board and thank them for their service.
Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. TE 26.124, endorsement of events for liquor licensing purposes. I will hold that we will come back to it. Can I get a motion to introduce new business, items number 125 to item number 141? Councillor Cressy? Okay. Thank you. All those in support? Well, I know you don't really support it, but you have to. Okay. No opposition. Let's add that, and we'll get that onto the floor. If there are any new business to be introduced, if you can let the clerks know as soon as possible. I know there are some additional motions. So we are now heading to the top of the agenda. We're at time item number for 10 o'clock. And it's TE 26.1, naming of public lane in the block bounded by Glazebrook Avenue, Bayview Avenue, Roehampton Avenue, and Glenavy Avenue, Ward 22.
Madam Chair, it's my delight and privilege to support naming this lane the Badali Family Lane. The Badali family first came to Canada in 1896 from Sicily. And the Badali's business in Toronto began in 1927 at the corner of Logan and Queen Streets. Then they moved up in the world, I tease, and moved north. It was Gus Badali who started his business. He sold fruits and vegetables from a horse-drawn wagon all over Toronto. In 1938, his son Leo saw an opportunity, and he moved the storefront onto Bayview. And with the help of his wife Lena and brother Sam and wife Victoria, they opened a fruit and vegetable market on Bayview Avenue. Now, their sons, Sal and Dom, run the store along with Steve and Sal's son, who co-owns Badali's Fruit Market. And all the family preach the importance of delivering quality to their customers. Theirs is the oldest continuously operated store on Bayview Avenue in Leaside, and it serves the Leaside and Davisville communities, along with people across the city who know them. And next year, in 2018, Badali's will be celebrating its 80th birthday. Badali's, in our community's opinion, stands as a true testament to hard work, dedication to community, and commitment to family. The reason that this naming is happening is because we got a call from a resident, Joan Stevens, who, after a tragedy occurred on that laneway, as many of us know, it was difficult for emergency services to find out exactly where it was and to be able to get there as quickly as they intended to, and therefore she requested that this naming be done. But the community agrees that the Badali family is certainly, they merit this honor and this naming for this lane, and I'm very happy to do this on behalf of them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Any other members who would like to speak? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Staff recommendations? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. T 26.2, naming of public lane located south of Kingston Road, extending westerly from Rainsford Road, Ward 32.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to move staff recommendations to name this laneway Morrissey Lane after a gentleman called Brendan Morrissey, who is essentially the mayor of the Beach Triangle, which is this area. And his neighbors felt so strongly about him and all his benevolence to the neighborhood over the years that they want to name this after him. They call him an all-round good neighbor, shoveling snow for everyone, bringing out garbage, taking care of the elderly, chopping wood, doing small repairs, light bulbs, etc., caring for neighbors who are ill, helping to transform the laneway and with drainage and animation to keep it safer. He's a neighborhood social convener. He walks through the triangle, checking up on everyone. He's involved in many groups, Beach Triangle Residents Association for over 31 years, which is the oldest residents association in the city. Ward 32 Spokes, our great cycling group, promoting safe cycling. He's also part of Cycle Toronto, and we'll be out celebrating our Woodbine Bike Lane this Saturday at our party that Councillor Davis and I are organizing. He's part of the Heart and Stroke Foundation, Charlie's Free Wheels, and all-around great fundraiser for the neighborhood as well. So with that, I move staff recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Anyone else who would like to speak? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. T 26.3, permanent closure of the public lane at the rear of 738, 783 Bathurst Street, extended between Bloor Street West and Lennox Street, Ward 19. No members of the public here to speak. Councillor Layton.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to move staff recommendations, and with that, just thank staff from real estate, from planning, from the legal department who were involved in this negotiation. It had been planned to be put forward as part of a larger package at our last council meeting, and we were scrambling for days to complete it. Given that this is a permanent closure of a public lane, Honest Ed's Lane, that will be replaced as part of a development, I think it's a testament to the hard work that both the community and the planning department and the developers have done, including, I'd say, the two local city councillors, to us not have contention remaining on this one final piece. Stay tuned at council when the details about the purchase come forward. We have managed to move something forward that is actually rather magnificent and will benefit both the community in several ways, but as well as the city financially. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Anyone else who would like to speak to the matter? No? Seeing none. All those in favor of the recommendations in the staff report? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. T 26.4, permanent closure of the westerly portion of the Ordnance Street, Boulevard butting 11 and 25 Ordnance Street, Ward 19.
I'd like to move the staff recommendation. This one is far less exciting.
All those in favor of this less exciting staff recommendations? Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Thank you. T 26.5, permanent closure of a portion of the public lane at the rear of 23 Morton Road, Ward 32. I don't believe there's any members of the public who are here to
No,
speak.
and I'd like to move staff recommendation for this. Thanks.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. Now we are dealing with items that were deferred from our June meeting. T 26.6, 321 Davenport Road zoning amendment application. There is a final report that was before us, which is no longer before us. Members, please take a note that you're also voting on item 6A, which is 321 Davenport Road zoning amendment application request for directions report. There are members of the public who are here to speak. If you have not registered yourself with the clerks, please do so. For now, I will call our first speaker, Robert Cooper. Please come to the front of the room. Okay. Oh, welcome. Hello. And you'll have 5 minutes, and the clock is on your left-hand side.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. My name is Robert Cooper. I'm the president of the Altera Group of Companies. Madam Chair, community council members and city staff, and members of the public, thank you for the opportunity to allow me to speak to the item this morning. First of all, I would like to thank Councillor Cressy, who has shown leadership and patience and has acted with a great deal of personal integrity every step of the way. City planning staff have dealt with our application very respectfully. They've demonstrated skill, professionalism, and integrity, encouraging us to bring forward an appropriate and frankly beautiful plan for 321 Davenport. The planners urged us to make changes to our initial vision, changes we were pleased to make, resulting in a final collaborative design that took almost 3 years to evolve. We are grateful to planning staff, particularly Barry Brooks, for assistance and guidance throughout the process, and for the positive planning report they have submitted to you in June and again today. Of course, the planning process isn't limited to planners, council, and the applicant in isolation. We recognize the community is an important stakeholder in the process, and we are grateful for the ongoing efforts and engagement with our neighbors from the Annex Ratepayers Association. Their interest in this application and the ongoing discussions we have had with them through the Councillor's office over the last 11 months have allowed us to consider our application not solely from our development needs or merely through the prism of the city's official plan, but with the view as to how our development could improve the neighborhood and the experiences of its residents. This is something we believe all development applicants should do. Our efforts to engage with residents and address their concerns, whether we were entirely successful or not, have helped shape our final proposal, and these engagements have contributed greatly to an improved design that we believed worked for all stakeholders. In this context, and with today's endorsement from planning staff, we hope the neighbors will reconsider their opposition and will view it as others do, an appropriate redevelopment of this urban infill site that seeks to create new mid-rise housing opportunities and appropriate intensification within an urban neighborhood. This delivers on the city's desire to create larger family-sized residential units that recognize relevant zoning requirements and which thoughtfully consider municipal guidelines and local planning objectives. In conclusion, let me suggest to you that despite the recent headlines around this file, neither the public opposition of a few very high-profile residents nor the articulated criticism by some respected urban thinkers is what matters most today. Instead, what matters most is that you focus on the conclusions presented today by the professionals within the city's planning department and the recommendation that the city solicitor and appropriate staff attend the OMB to support the application and amend the zoning bylaw. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Are there questions of the Deputy and Councillor Cressy?
Thank you, Rob. One question, which is, in our previous conversations, my understanding is that your wish is to proceed to mediation to see if that is possible, as opposed to waiting for a full hearing, given that this is now before the OMB. Is that still your position?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other members who have questions for the Deputy? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Michael Melling. Michael? Sure. Right. Yeah, okay. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you kindly, Madam Chair. Good morning to you and to the members of Community Council. I'm Michael Melling, and to the extent that any of you know who I am, which is probably not many of you, I'm primarily known as an evil and ruthless developers lawyer. But here today, I am appearing as counsel to Margaret Atwood, who, as now everyone on earth knows, lives on Admiral Road. I've also reviewed what I was going to say with a number of our neighbors, and while they are not my clients and I can't speak for them, I think it's fair to say that most of them agree with the following thoughts, and there are 4 of them. First, notwithstanding the occasionally vile and consistently misrepresentative treatment of Margaret and her neighbors in the commercial and on social media, they are not opposed to redevelopment of 321 Davenport. They recognize that it is an underutilized site and that it could and should be improved. Second, and again, notwithstanding the bile and falsehoods out there in the Twitterverse and elsewhere, my client and her neighbors are not opposed to a mid-rise residential building on the site. Third, what Margaret and her neighbors are concerned about is the design of the building as it is currently proposed, and that's based on concerns about non-conformity with the neighborhood's protection policies in your official plan and non-compliance with your own mid-rise design guidelines. But most important is what I will say fourthly. These concerns can and should and I believe will ultimately be resolved. Mr. Cooper has indicated a willingness to talk, and that's why Margaret and her neighbors are calling for and supportive of mediation of those concerns at the Ontario Municipal Board. And that's why I'm asking you today not to make a premature decision either to support or oppose the application at the board, but rather to direct that staff and legal join in a request for OMB mediation and come back to you for direction if it fails, but it won't, because this case will prove that the planning process works, that the city approval process works, and please forgive me, that the Ontario Municipal Board process works. And subject to any questions that you might have, that is all I had intended to say.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions for our deputant today? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public who are interested in speaking to this matter? Seeing none, we'll bring this right into to council. Questions of staff. Councillor Fragedakis.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. So through you to staff, so I saw a tweet from this police officer, Ashley, about one of these parking elevators breaking down and causing problems for pedestrians and cyclists. So I was wondering if we had any statistics from 311 or transportation on complaints and issues that have arisen from those.
Through the chair, we don't have those kind of statistics.
Councillor, we're on item number 321.
Right, and it says it's going to have a stackable elevator. Am I reading the wrong report?
We're on item T26.6, 321 Davenport Road. Is that the item that you are following us on?
It's talking about the stackers. It's on page 9.
So, declare that final report is moot because it was already appealed to the OMB. We're dealing with 6A.
Oh. So I haven't seen, I thought we were talking about 6.
In my opening remarks, I said that the final report, which was listed as 6, is no longer before us. What we are going to be voting on and speaking to is item number 6A, which is the request for directions report, which does speak to the final report, but all we need to do now is provide direction to staff.
Well, so is the elevator not a part of it at all?
It's fine. I think staff just need to hear the question clearly and provide a response.
Through the chair, we don't have those statistics regarding the reliability of the parking stackers.
So if I could just follow up on that, because I'm still on 6, even though we're looking at requests for directions, because I have actually concerns around this the stacker, because I have a development in my area that actually has one of these, so I'd like some information. Because it says that in the report that an on-site concierge is going to be available to park or collect visitor vehicles, and I was just wondering, how would we be able to guarantee that there's always going to be a concierge there and that they'll be able to take care of cars in a timely fashion? What if, for example, the condo board wishes to do away with a concierge?
That's something that we can secure through the site plan agreements on the site, and they will be registered on title.
Okay. So some of the other things, I mean, is the site plan, is that being together with the actual rezoning to the OMB? Are they going together? I mean, these applications to me seem a little odd. We're doing a zoning amendment application, but the site plan isn't before us? Or is it? To someone, I'm not sure who I'm speaking to, but I'll speak through the chair.
Through the chair, the application that's been appealed is the zoning bylaw amendment. The site plan control application has not been submitted yet, and these are issues that will be reviewed in detail when that application is submitted.
So they're going to go for the rezoning first and then work out the details later?
That's correct, although some of these details, as you rightly point out, do come up in the rezoning discussions. And we have detailed drawings that we've been reviewing in preparation for the ultimate submission of a site plan.
Good. Okay. Anyone else who have questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, members to speak. Councillor Cressy.
Thank you, Chair, and I have a motion, if it could be put on the screen. And I'll speak to the motion first, and then I'm going to speak at a broader level because this has been a broader conversation. First of all, on the motion, as you all are aware, this application was appealed to the Ontario Municipal Board in July. I was hopeful that we would have been able to be in a position here today where we are in a position to approve a final project with changes, but it is before the board. As such, I have spoke, and you've heard, both with the lawyer representing the local community as well as the applicant. And both are fully supportive of proceeding to mediation as quickly as possible. And listen, we all deal with the development process far too often. Rather than spend 12 to 18 months and a great deal of money and time to get a full hearing at the board where perhaps nobody is happy, let's get in a room and get on with it. This is a development site, and there are issues that are being addressed. So that's the motion to move forward. But I want to take a step back because the public discussion around this has been intense, and it's brought up two key issues that I think we all collectively deal with that I'd like to comment on. One has to deal with housing supply and where do we grow and build housing, and the second is the role of local communities to engage in that process. On the issue of where we grow, the city is growing. We need more housing. We also critically need more affordable housing and rental housing, though that's not what we're dealing with specifically here today. So where do we grow? Well, we're not only growing in Tower neighborhoods around Yonge and Eglinton and in the downtown core and on Yonge and North York, we also must grow around the established neighborhoods. This is in the annex. I grew up in the annex. I live in Seaton Village, and I rent. I actually think I'm the only city councillor who doesn't own property at this point, and I rent. Now, for my generation, where are we going to live? Well, where I want to live is in one of the neighborhoods near where I grow up, which means that we need to build around the neighborhoods. Now, there are some who have said it's time to break the yellow belt, that it is time to block bust within the neighborhoods. I disagree with that. I think a lot of our low-rise neighborhoods are of special character, unique design, unique built form, and thus we need to ensure that those are protected. But given supply, when you protect those, the property values rise and they become inaccessible, thus the need to build on the edges. And in the annex, that means we will be building and are building on DuPont and Davenport and Spadina and Bloor and others. That's where my generation is going to live. But just as Davenport is being developed and should be developed, and just as this is a development site and should be a development site, the other piece of the puzzle here is not just where you grow, but how you engage and change. And that comes to the second critical piece of the puzzle, which is local engagement. Neighborhoods have a responsibility to say yes to change that's going to improve the city. Neighborhoods have a responsibility to say yes, and we all deal with this. There are some who never want to say yes. But neighborhoods also have an absolute right to say no to proposed changes that are going to harm them. That process of building a city together, of building a city with community, with council, with staff, with developers, it does take longer. It is often harder, but it results in a better result. That's the end game here. Look at Honest Ed's and how neighborhoods came together. Now this site, the neighborhood understands change is coming. They have recognized that it is a development site, and they have stated that equivocally. But they want to ensure that some outstanding issues are addressed, overlook issues, trees, and others. And I want to be clear, there are some who say no always, but there is nothing NIMBY about supporting development but demanding that it's done right. That's saying yes. And so I'll just close by saying that the annex has come up a lot. I grew up in the annex, I represent the annex. The annex is changing. And property values are rising and driving some of that change. But the annex is and has always been a welcoming place. That is the annex. We welcome shelters into the annex, just like last year when we had one of the first LGBTQ transitional houses come in. We welcome rooming houses. We welcome change and development. In fact, when Honest Eds came forward, the annex demanded 20% affordable housing in that development. And the annex has always also said no and fought for no to things that are harmful. The Spadina Expressway is the ultimate example. And so the annex needs new housing. We want new housing, and we will continue to engage and build new housing all throughout the edges, including on Davenport. And as a community, we will continue to engage to ensure that we do it right. And with that, we're moving into a mediation, and we are going to build on this site, and it's going to be a better project because of that process. I wish we could have resolved it here today, but we are where we are, and it's now time to move forward and get it done together. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor. Anyone else who would like to speak?
I'd like to thank Councillor Cressy for his leadership in a thorny issue that we've all been reading about, and moving to mediation with all sides, wishing that, and also recognize the strength of your community around planning, Councillor. And I'm sure very good hands with this process.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Any other members who would like to speak? Okay. We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay. That carries. Actually, item is, yeah, can we get to adopt the item as amended, please? All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. T 26.7333 College Street and 308 Augusta Avenue, official plan amendment and zoning amendment applications. Final report, Ward 20. And we do have speakers. For any members of the public who are interested in speaking to this item, please make sure you register with the clerk. Our first speaker is Dominic Russell. Dominic Russell. Dominique. Okay. Okay. I will set your clock. You have 5 minutes. The clock is on your left. Members, can I get your attention? We have a speaker. Members, if I can draw your attention, go ahead, please.
So my name is Dominique Russell. I'm with Friends of Kensington Market. We represent a lot of residents, most of the residents of Kensington Market, and we represent as well people who love the market and consider it the jewel of Toronto in some ways. Speaking of, because the issue of NIMBYism comes up, I think it's important in terms of Kensington Market to consider that this is the area that Toronto uses to advertise itself. It's an area that is essentially all of Toronto's backyard. And so we are lucky to live, those of us who live in Kensington Market, and we consider ourselves custodians of this market. So our interest is not just, although we represent the interest, and I think it is really important to consider in terms of this development what happens to people's backyards, so what happens in the residential areas, but also we look to the interest of the city in preserving this area. We appreciate very much what we've been able to the changes that we've been able to see in this proposal that Councillor Cressy has been able to negotiate. So I don't want to register any opposition to the amended proposal that will come forth. But I do want to take this moment to register Friends of Kensington's concern that the Heritage Conservation District study, the recommendations, the city has brought forward this study, and yet this proposal, as before the amendments brought forward, essentially ignores those recommendations. I think for Kensington Market, we really need, before we have a Heritage Conservation District, we need to look at those recommendations. And every time we look at a development, we welcome residential housing, we see the need for infilling, But we need to look at those recommendations. There's two things to consider. One is the pedestrian experience of Kensington Market. If we build towers all around Kensington Market, then we will be losing something essential, which is the small human scale of Kensington Market. And I believe that though the city is changing, that is something that we really need to protect. One of the recommendations of the Heritage Conservation District is to consider the the bounding streets, Spadina, College, Dundas, and Bathurst, consider those in any development that comes forward. The development pressure in Kensington Market is tremendous. The lots are huge, so while we can say, well, this is a College Street development, we need to consider that it will extend all the way to Oxford Street. Again, thinking about the pedestrian experience of Augusta, what happens when you have a tower there? The development pressure on Spadina is huge. Again, the lots are very, very deep. So a development that is considered on Spadina needs to be considered as Kensington Market within that bounding area. So I very much appreciate the changes that have been made, but I hope that it's the last time that we're in a situation where we have a development proposal for Kensington Market that doesn't consider Kensington Market primarily. We have one Kensington Market. It's not just our neighborhood, it's the neighborhood that Toronto holds as its own. I'm sure that Councillor Cressy can tell you when something happens in Kensington Market, you don't just hear from residents of Kensington Market, you hear from residents everywhere. So I urge you, in looking at this development proposal, to consider primarily what this will mean for the pedestrian experience of Kensington Market. I urge you to consider the residential aspect of where the boundaries between the commercial residential and residential. I ask that you look very carefully at any future development. We absolutely must have the political will to look at the Heritage Conservation District rules and apply them, even though it's not yet been approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Are there any members actually, don't go away. We have questions for you from Councillor Cressy.
Thank you, Chair. And Dominique, thank you for being here today and all your work on this process. So my colleagues here have not yet seen the motion and the changes that I will be bringing forward. But just so that they understand, two of the critical issues that I will be seeking to address in those changes relate to the relationship to the TCHC building to the east and the depth as it relates to going closer into the market. Are those two issues and the changes we're making ones that you think are important and need to be done?
So it is very important, the TCHC building, which will be essentially in shadow. Some compensation needs to be made for our seniors. And if the idea of the depth, it's just consider the height. Consider the depth becomes height from Oxford and from Augusta. And so that is a primary concern of what that's going to look like, how that's going to change the pedestrian feel, and also what that does for the residents of Oxford Street. So yes.
And can I ask one question which always comes up on development files is height. Now, we've completed a College Street study calling for 9. Now, we understand that this was in before then, and planning have made their recommendation. If we're able to address the depth issue with a slight increase in height, understanding that we have a College Street study going forward, as hard as that is that a trade-off that's worth considering?
It's a trade-off that's worth considering. It's very unfortunate that we will have this greater height, but you know, when you're looking at development proposals, often what you're looking at is which one is the worst, and to have essentially height on Augusta right up to Oxford is very problematic. And so there is a willingness and a consensus within the community to allow for a little bit more height on College Street in order to protect Oxford and Augusta.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dominique.
Thank you very much. Any other members who have questions for our speaker? Okay. Thank you. Our next speaker is Christina Eretti Zopo. Okay. Okay, welcome. You will have 5 minutes. The clock is on your left-hand side, and you can begin anytime.
Thank you, Madam Chair and councillors. My points, although I do support fully what Dominique has said, I don't want to repeat it. My points will be more, if you want, of an NIMBY kind of style. And my location is just behind the building. What we are talking about is that the south elevation will affect my properties and my neighbors' properties. I do speak for 48, 50, 52, 52B, and 56 Oxford Street. And they are really the properties that are on the other side of Ellen Street would be facing the south elevation. And that is what I want to address. The one biggest worry that I have is soil instability in that area. Now, I have seen right now that I have an overhead projector. I did bring some pictures of the current soil instability on Ellen Avenue for the north-south part. In the past 2 or 3 years, there has been a truck traffic that has carved ruts in the street quite large and quite big. And my house, 48, has the foundation just besides it and the water main entrance on that Elena Avenue. So it is a matter of time, both will get cracked. I have asked this secretary, the people handling this paperwork, for the results of the soil sampling that was done on the back of Ellen Avenue without even notifying us, by the way, of the disruption and noise and everything, and I have been denied such results. But the worry remains about it. There are other indications on Oxford Street, such as holes that keep sinking and keep being filled. So that is a concern for our properties. Any vibration in the soil for construction will disrupt further the soil texture and therefore our properties. Another concern I have is the noise that would come to us regarding the current design that we have on the south elevation of the building concerned. It calls for outdoor amenity spaces. Now, please understand that from a height of 12 to 14 meters, if you throw a beer bottle, you can kill somebody. And nearby, just next door to this south elevation with outdoor spaces, there would be, and there is, a senior home. And not to count, of course, our backyards. And we have been there for quite some time. Generally, we have addressed in other documentation our concerns about the possible light pollution towards Ellen Avenue and possible reflective outer surfaces of the building, so I will not describe them again. What we want to address is not just during the construction phases, but especially during construction and even later, absolutely no transit through Ellen Avenue, again because of our concerns regarding the soil instability of that area. And no parking because we have rights of way to the back of Ellen Avenue to our garage. Generally, I would want to reiterate that we are favorable to mid-rise buildings because we recognize that that lot currently is very underutilized, but we need to become reasonable about it. So while I support completely what Dominique has said, I reiterate that yes, we would be happier with a lower elevation on the south side and definitely no possibility of disturbance, noise or otherwise, towards the neighboring buildings and inhabitants. I have finished my presentation. If I can try to use this overhead projector with my pictures, I'm not sure how to do it. Maybe somebody can guide me? And face up. You will see very clearly. Yesterday it was raining. I was able to take pictures. I'm sorry. I was able to take pictures with the ruts full of water. You can see clearly how deep they are. This is towards the north side. And this is towards the south side. On your right of the picture, there is a darker patch of asphalt, and that is the placement of my water main entrance. You can see that as the soil moves so much near the water main entrance, it's a matter of time. I will have a breach. It's just common physics, common construction practice.
Christina, thank you very much for your remarks. Your time has come to an end. Are there any members who have questions? Councillor Cressy has a question for you, Christina.
Thank you so much, Christina, for being here. So I will have a motion that will include changes on the following, and I want to see if there's anything from your perspective that is missing. On the laneway, that will restrict loading and construction using the laneway. On light transfer, restrictions related to light transfer. Materiality during the site plan as it relates to reflection towards Oxford in the south. The requirement for pre and post surveys and vibration monitoring and looking at the status of the properties, as well as making those logs publicly available. Sound and noise mitigation to be in place on the terrace, including the inability for people to get to the end, the concern of beer bottles, and then a significant shift related to the massing above the third floor in the rear to move it further away. That's the summary of what I have heard in our conversation here. Is there something I'm missing?
Not really. I just would like to specify that the north-south portion of Ellen Avenue has been for the past 39 years an access to the seniors' home garage, 35 garage spaces. And I never had any problems. I have been there since the beginning for the 39 years. I never had any problems with cars. When the ruts started to appear when trucks started to come to that lane. So I will be, and personally, because it is adjacent to my property, I will be favorable to any car transit, but absolutely nothing heavier than a car. And at this point, I'm defending my property. My property is already shifting. The inside of my property have all the doors that are perpendicular to the lane are shifting. They are sticking because it is shifting this way because the ground is moving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for our deputant? Thank you, Christina. Our next speaker is Charlotte Cotto. Or Charlene, I apologize. Charlene? Charlene Cotto. Welcome, Charlene. The clock is on your left-hand side, and you have 5 minutes to speak. When you're ready, I'll start your clock.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. I am here because I have been hearing things about my neighborhood, and I have lived in my neighborhood for over 40 years. And with regards to zoning bylaws, applications that are filed by developers, applications that are heard in the city council and passed without full knowledge of the of people living in the neighborhood. So my interest has been heightened even more so by the conduct that I seem to be reflective of misconduct. There was an application that has been filed with regards to a property at Bathurst Street and Augusta. With regards to the address, it appears as though some of the people who are living there were not privy to the actions that were taken prior to their getting information. And that is the same thing that has occurred in other areas and on other properties. And one of the properties that it has occurred on is with the Atkinson Housing Cooperative, Inc., to which I'm a part of, to which I'm also a part of the community becoming a cooperative from Ontario Housing Corporation under the MTH, under Metro Toronto Housing. Under the Metro Toronto Housing, we have had people like Mr. Jack Layton. That was a big part of it. I know he's not here now, and he cannot speak with regards to the matter. However, we have also Olivia Chow, that was a big part of the community becoming a cooperative. And what I see is there is a strong connection between what has occurred then and what is going on right now. And there is a tremendous amount of questions that even City Hall, as the municipal level of government, and the bureaucrats that are involved, they need to be able to be very clear in the decisions that they have been making that negatively impacts neighborhood like my cooperative. I know that it is a lot of things have gone through, and I am talking about you know things that have been passed. But as a person who have been involved in municipal interest in municipal politics for a long time, to which I ran as the Metro Councillor. It wasn't even city, as a Metro Councillor in 1991. So. And there were things that was happening at the time that I knew that I was going to be able to address. However, over the last couple of months and years, we have had applications that have been put in by Friends of Toronto Community Housing, and that is an application that is number 12158-501 STE 20SB. And the application that was put in by the TCHC is 14142 STE 20OZ. I obtained a letter on Tuesday. As a matter of fact, last Thursday, I was down at Metro, and I got that I even have a folder in City Hall here in the clerk's office that I have never received. I ended up getting a printout of this thing, and my file or folder number is 11143-145 STE 20CC. So I want to know what's going on with regards to the Planning Act, with regards to the Zoning Act, regarding to zoning bylaws being changed, which was under the application of 486-86, and it was changed to 17110-2013. My letter is, some of my letters are going back to 2011, and my situations and interests have never been addressed. So I need it to be addressed, and it should be investigated.
Okay, thank you very much. Your time is concluded. Hold on, there may be questions of you from the members. Any other members who have questions? No. Thank you very much. Can I have Andy Damaris come to the front? Yes, thank you. Thank you for your remarks. Andy Damaris. Hi, Andy. Welcome.
Good morning, Madam Chair. It's Medeiros for the record.
Medeiros.
Medeiros, yes. Thank you. Members of Council, thank you very much, and City staff. I'll not be very long. I just wanted to address, I am a resident of Oxford Street. I have not had an opportunity to speak with Councillor Cressy on this, so I'll make my views known here in public. I've been a resident of Oxford Street for about 40 years. My family had immigrated from Portugal and lived there, and we've continued on that family tradition there. The neighborhood has changed. We are not opposed to development in the Kensington market. As you know, the Kensington market is diverse to a number of people and programs and services. I echo the comments by Dominique and my neighbor Christina. I am concerned about the depth of the building infringing on the backyards on the north side of Oxford Street. As you know, 34 Oxford Street is a seniors residence, TCHC. We're concerned about the impact that it will have on them. But recently, there was some construction on College Street, as Councillor Cressley knows. There was a number of heavy equipment that was being utilized on the residential side street of Oxford Street, and that has impacted the neighbors there considerably in terms of noise. 7 a.m. in the morning, these trucks are backing up with their signals. They have ruined the road. It is essentially moguls going down Oxford Street. I have called the city with regards to that, and there's a 2 to 3 year waiting list to even look at that. So there are the concerns, as my neighbor Christina had mentioned, the impact of the heavy equipment will have on the roadway and the use of Oxford Street. And that is my biggest concern. On the south side of Oxford Street, there's a little parquet, Sonia's parquet, that residents use. So this is what I would like to bring to council in terms of approving or not approving, that they take into consideration the construction staging area, that it will have a significant impact on the residents, particularly on Oxford Street, and children that are walking to and from school in the morning as well as the park. Subject to any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Are there questions for our speaker? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak to this item? We're on item number 7. Okay, I see, oh, welcome. Okay, you've been here before, so you know, 5 minutes.
Thank you. Chair, members of Community Council, my name is Craig Hunter. I'm the planning consultant on behalf of the owners. I'll be very brief. We have been at this planning process for about 2 years. We've had 3 rounds of community consultations, and first and foremost, I'd like to appreciate staff's efforts in terms of bringing forward a final report, which really reflected the directions that had come out of a conversation over about a year's period. That resulted in a building going down in scale from about 13 stories to 11. Transitioning down following a mid-rise pattern to the neighborhood to the south on Oxford Street. We've talked and met with many of the residents who have spoken today and appreciate their concerns. First and foremost, I just want to speak to some changes that will be coming through Councillor Cressy that are different than staff's recommendations and ones that our clients can accept. They're principally focused on the rear lane. Ellen Avenue has been discussed. Just to clarify to council, there will be no access to Ellen Avenue from the rear for any form of access for vehicles. It's not used today by this site, which is a U-Haul truck repair facility, and it will only provide access in the future by a pedestrian linkage to and from College Street. Secondly, I think the primary focus that has been the effort of Councillor Cressy together with residents after a community meeting in June, where staff, I think, quite professionally came forward and said that they were prepared to support the project. There was more concern still expressed from the community with respect to the rear, even though myself professionally and planning staff felt that the transition was being achieved in a mid-rise kind of fashion. There was still a desire to see more of the mass taken away from the area to the south. And in essence, the adjustments that are being made is that a cut is being made off the rear of the property where the truck facility exists today, which is a neighborhood designation, to make sure that that place remains as a 3-story building in that area. And that mass is being taken and placed on top of the building within the angular planes on top as a partial 12th floor to the building. Somewhere between where we were originally and where staff were. And again, we appreciate all the residents' input to date, Councillor Cressy's efforts and those of staff. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any members with questions? Seeing none, okay. No, ma'am. Unfortunately, we've brought this matter inside. We're asking questions from members to the public. Thank you very much, Craig.
Thank you.
Anyone else who would like to speak from the public? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring this right into committee. Councillor Cressy?
I'm going to be standing this down till after lunch as I'm completing a motion still, which I'm hard at work on with the applicant, and I still want to be able to show it to some of the folks who have spoken here today. So I'm going to stand this down until after lunch, if that's all right.
And we'll do the same thing with any questions of staff at that time. We'll come back to it then.
Thank you.
we are now on item number TE 26.8, 500 Lakeshore Boulevard West, official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment, final report. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak to this item? Seeing none, we'll bring this right into Community Council. Members who have questions of staff? Seeing none, members to speak? Councillor Cressy?
Thank you, and thank you to my colleagues for the indulgence of Ward 20 Day at Community Council. I'm moving staff recommendations, and just very briefly, this is a project that was already approved, and then the Bentway came about. And here was an initiative which, at our request, and with some really hard work on the part of our development partners who already had approval, they changed it. They changed their project to, in our view, make it better, and in their view, make it better to align with the Bentway. And so here's an excellent example of, I think, the development community working with the city and working with council to improve a project. And with that, I want to thank staff and thank Concord and Whittington for their work and move the staff recommendations.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else who would like to speak to the matter? Okay. All those in favor of the recommendations in the staff report? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, Madam Chair, sorry. I'm just wondering if we could reserve some time in the next 28 minutes to go through the items where there are no deputants, no questions, and that can be basically used to clear the deck. I know there are many issues here, many people here for various items that are just here to see the proceedings for their special item. For the ones that are before 11:30, 11:30 or before.
So, Councillor Mihevc, we are still on the timed items for
Yes.
10 a.m. If we can get to that, I would be happy to do so. It would be probably a little bit difficult to actually do so without jumping the order. There are a number of speakers that are already registered on this item, but we'll see how we monitor the time. Let's say within 5 minutes before 12:30, we'll take another look again.
Thank you.
Okay, so. Sorry, we're.
Councilor Mihevc, I think, was asking if we could go through the agenda of items 10, 10:30, 11 o'clock that don't have deputants and that don't have any questions of the councilors on this committee, and if to clear the agenda. I think that was his question, and I don't think that was the.
Councillor Fragedakis, because the items are before us and timed for 10 o'clock, we will have to ask members of the public within the gallery whether or not they have any, if they would like to speak on the matter. I'm trying to move as quickly as possible, but there's very little opportunity to deviate that, considering we're still at 10 a.m. So the answer to that question is we will get to it, but I have to clear the 10 o'clock items, and then we move right into a batch that are sitting at 10:30. So. Our next item has speakers. The following item may or may not have speakers. The following item after that has speakers. I won't be able to vary it much more than that. So item number T 26.9 is now our item. This is 102 to 118 Peter Street, 350 to 354 Adelaide Street West zoning amendment application. Final report, Ward 20. There are 3 registered speakers so far. If you are a member of the public who would also like to speak, please let the clerk know, and he will update my speakers list. I call now to the front of the room, Neil Smiley.
Chair, the applicant and members of the community have been informed that this is being deferred, and so if people speak today, I believe that means they wouldn't be able to speak next month at the time that it comes back.
Okay. Okay, so I think the information is fairly clear. There is another opportunity to address this matter. If you cannot attend the following meeting and you really have to speak now, we of course would welcome your remarks. We recognize that you've been waiting for some time. So Neil Smiley, Max Allen, Cynthia McDougall, the item is being deferred. Do you need to speak today?
No.
No? I'm seeing a lot of shaking of heads.
Thank you, Council.
Okay. Any other members of the public? No, seeing none, we'll bring this into committee. Councillor Cressy, go ahead.
Thank you, and do you have the... She's just preparing the deferral motion, if you want to go to the next item and come right
Okay,
back.
not a problem. We'll come right back to that. T 26.10, 125, The Esplanade, City Initiative Zoning Amendment Application, Final Report. Are there any members of the public who are interested in speaking to this item? Okay, seeing none, I believe we could probably deal with it. Councillor Fletcher, do you have any questions of staff?
No, I'm just going to move to approve staff recommendations and say it includes a temporary use bylaw, North St. Lawrence Market temporary structure. And as we know, there's the archaeological dig there, so everything needs to be extended at this.
Okay. Any questions of the mover? It's basically the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. TE 26.11, 25 Ontario Street and 280 King Street East zoning amendment application, final report. We have one speaker, Peter Nikolakakos. Peter, are you here? Welcome. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name.
That's perfect.
Okay. Oh,
thank you.
Wonderful. Go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'll be very quick. Just on behalf of First Golf, we'd like to provide our condolences for the late councillor. We worked very closely with her. We thought she was an exceptional councillor, exceptional woman, and an exceptional Torontonian. We'd also like to thank her staff and thank planning staff in particular, Heritage, Urban Design, for their efforts to date, and we're fully supportive of the report. That's it.
Okay. Thank you very much, Peter. Any other members of the public who would like to speak to item number 11? Okay, seeing that, we'll bring that right into Community Council. Councillor Fletcher?
Again, I'm moving this on behalf of Ward 28, but of course, Councillor McConnell, who did all of this work on this and is well on the North Market, one of her favorite projects, and we'll put a lot of love into completing that. For this, this is a 23-story building, as you've mentioned. It is actually an employment use in downtown, which is great, and Heritage has been incorporated into the development. So I'd like to acknowledge the work by planning and the developer to resolve the HVAC problems that were related to the neighbor building, and a very good community process with St. Lawrence neighborhood. And from the staff, to big thank you to Henry Tang in planning for his work on what are always complicated files in Ward 28, 27, and 20.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I certainly would echo those gratitude. Anyone else who'd like to speak to this matter? Seeing none, okay, so we're ready to vote. Recommendation before us from the staff report. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. Thank you.
There was to be number 16 should have been done along with this item, number 11.
Oh, I see.
Which
Yes,
is
that's
the
right.
alterations to the heritage property. So I'd move staff recommendations along with that as well, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Item number 16. All those in favor? Okay, it's an accompanying report. Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. Thank you very much. So are you ready for item number 9? Back to Peter Street and Peter and Adelaide?
Thank you. If the motion could be put on the screen, it's a deferral motion. This is a project that's had a long and collaborative process. The one-month deferral is strictly to deal with working with the adjacent property owners around creating a new public green space, and a little bit more time is required to deal with that and address the associated easement conditions. And so we're just about there, and so I'd ask for your indulgence for a one-month deferral so that we can finish this.
All those in favor of the deferral? Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. Thank you very much. We are on item number 2612, alterations to a designated property, intention to designate under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and authority to enter into a heritage easement agreement, 263 Adelaide Street West. Any members of the public who would like to speak to this item? Okay. Any members of the public who would like to speak to this item? Seeing none, okay, we'll bring that right into Community Council. Any members for questions of staff? Seeing none. Members to speak, go ahead, Councillor Cressy.
This is the heritage component of the same file. We just moved a deferral on, thus I will be moving a deferral for 1 month to the October meeting. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Mary. 13, sorry. Moving staff recommendations on this one, on 12.
On 12.
On 12.
We're on item, sorry, why don't we just clarify? We're on item number 12. This is pertaining to 263 Adelaide Street West.
We'll be moving staff recommendations on this one. The deferral is on 13.
Okay. All those in favor of the staff recommendations? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. So item number 26.13. We'll just read the title for the record. Alterations to designated heritage properties, intention to designate under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and authority to enter into a heritage easement agreement 350 to 352 Adelaide Street West and 118 Peter Street. I recognize there are no members of the public who would like to speak. Any members? Seeing none, we'll bring this inside. I know that there are no questions because Councillor Cressy is about to move a deferral motion. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And this, I will move the deferral to next month for this.
Okay. All those in favor of the deferral motion? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. We are now on item number 26.14. We may not be able to complete this item. So we have an opportunity. Why don't we hear from the speakers? We'll try to do that as quickly as possible. If everyone, I'll be calling your names. This is for item number designation of the King Spadina Heritage Conservation District under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Our first speaker is Salwa Musa, followed by Joseph Musa. If there are any members of the public who would like to speak to this item, please register your name with the clerk and he'll update the speakers list. I just want to draw your attention to the time. It's not for you, it's actually for the members and for the clerk. We will be breaking for a 1-hour lunch break at 12:30. So we may need a motion to extend to hear the speakers, and then we'll come back and deliberate on the item afterwards. Okay. When you're ready, you have will you be sharing your time?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, please.
I'll start first. Yeah. Just.
My name is Joseph Musa, and along with my mother, Salwa Musa, we own a property in Ward 20. The address is 453 Adelaide Street West. We are here to show our support and ask that the HCD plan and designation bylaw be passed by City Council and enforcement of the King Spadina Heritage Conservation District Plan be put into effect. 453 Adelaide Street West is located within the proposed King Spadina HCD and is identified as a contributing property within the draft King Spadina HCD plan. It is part and parcel of a row of 4 attached Victorian townhomes. 447, 449, 451, and our 453 Adelaide Street West were all built between 1903 through 1906. All of these row houses share a party wall, and each property has already been identified as contributing within the proposed King Spadina HCD plan. There is also an end unit at 455 Adelaide Street West. It is a 2.5-story residential red brick building constructed in 1880. The King Spadina HCD draft plan also identifies 445 Adelaide Street West as contributing property with design and contextual value, which not only reflects a residential topology, but also high Victorian Gothic style. All properties are located within the St. Andrews character sub-area, directly across the south side of St. Andrews Playground. We are one of 950 original residents in the King Spadina area dating back to 1996. We have been proud residential property owners for 21 years. We believe in growth and development for our community that is balanced and fair to all residents, old and new. We have witnessed over the past 14 years the growth and changes of King Spadina, which has seen over 99 new major redevelopment projects. The Toronto City Council had the vision and foresight on December 11th, 12th, and 13th, 2016, to pass the King Spadina HCD study area bylaw. This bylaw prohibits the demolition or removal of potentially contributing buildings within the HCD study area for a period of 1 year to enact a moratorium on demolition in the King Spadina area. Just a few months ago, all our neighboring properties, so 445 through to 451 Adelaide Street West, sold conditional to the same buyer trying to assemble the entire properties for development, including our 453 Adelaide Street West property. My mother was approached on June 2nd, 2017, and was told by the buyer's real estate brokerage, who is also a developer in the area, if you don't sell your property to us, I will cut your wall and build another wall and build beside you. He told us the price that the property beside us was bought for, and that if we don't sell, they will just simply build without us. We were sent an offer later that day from his brokerage, and we did our due diligence. We visited City Hall and we spoke with various city planners and Preservation Board staff to understand a little bit more about what was going on. And we responded accordingly with an irrevocable signback offer of our selling price and our terms. On August 1st, 2017, a rezoning application number 17209-531 STE 20OZ was submitted to the city. This is an application by the developer to amend the zoning bylaw to permit the demolition and redevelopment of 445 through to 451 Adelaide Street West with a new 11-story office building, having a height of 40.5 meters, including the mechanical penthouse. The proposal includes 249 square meters of retail space at grade, 3,955 square meters above, and 10 car parking spaces, one level below grade. The developer states in their application rationale that although it would be desirable from a planning and urban design perspective to achieve a comprehensive redevelopment of the properties at 445 through to 453 Adelaide Street West, attempts to assemble the property at 453 Adelaide Street West have so far proven unsuccessful. In this regard, there is no reasonable planning mechanism to compel an owner to participate in a land assembly if it is unwilling to do so. If not for the demolition bylaw and the King Spadina HCD proposed plan, our townhouse would have been turned into a nail house. A nail house is a term given to property owners that outright refuse to sell their property. Council members, we are not against development. We have in the past sold our property conditional as part of a proposed assembly and are willing to sell our property, but not under threats and intimidation. Most recently, an application 17215103 STE 20OZ submitted on August 11th, 2017 for rezoning of 471 Adelaide Street West proposes the King Adelaide Centre while creating new density above heritage. So clearly there's examples of developers that are open to keeping heritage inclusive of the area and are respectful to neighbors in the community. The 455 Adelaide development application states in their urban design rationale that our property, number 453 Adelaide Street West, would have limited prospects for redevelopment on its own, obviously once they develop their property. Rather than 445 Adelaide development presenting an application for rezoning that enhances the entire block, creating a more comprehensive streetscape, a livable and equitable community, the 445 Adelaide development application calls for demolishing the contributing properties identified in the HCD plan, turning our 453 Adelaide Street West townhouse into a nail house, and would also sacrifice over 1,000 square meters above grade of King Spadina real estate that should and could have been developed to serve the community. So we're here to show our support and ask that the HCD plan and designation bylaw be passed by the City Council and enforcement of the King Spadina Heritage Conservation District Plan be put into effect. And my mother would like to share some of her thoughts and her experiences.
Hi, everybody. I am Salwa Musa, owner joint tenant with my son Joseph. My concern is in regards to the 5 houses on Adrid Street West. Some contractor bought the 4 houses attached to our corner house, and the real estate agent been harassing us and bullying us to buy our house and threatening me that will cut our wall and build beside you. That caused me health problem. I am treated for high blood pressure and worries. I would like to support the King Spadina Heritage Conservation by leaving the whole front of the 5 houses intact and conserved, including 453 Adelaide. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for the deputants? Okay, thank you very much. So we have 4 speakers on this list. I just want to ask members of committee if they want to extend to finish this, or we're going to come back and we will introduce some new business and try to clear a couple things off of the agenda. What's the will of the committee? Okay, so we'll clear and come back. We'll hold the speakers list on item 26.14, and we'll resume that matter after the lunch break. So I understand. I just asked that of the committee, and no one said anything except for Councillor Mihevik. No, that's not what he moved. So are we extending to finish? I'd like the will of the committee.
I would like to move to extend to finish the item.
Or the speakers.
I'm making a
Hear the deputation.
Hear the deputations. Sorry.
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor to extend beyond 12:30 to finish the speakers list on item 26.14.
Yes.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, that carries. So the next speaker is Neil Wood, President Camwood Properties. Mr. Wood. Good afternoon. If you could introduce yourselves.
Want to introduce yourself?
Hi there, sorry. Who's Mr. Wood and who will be speaking?
Thank you very much. My name is Neil Wood, and I'm the president and owner of a company called Camwood Properties Limited.
You can actually sit down and speak.
Thank you. Camwood Properties was formed about 30 years ago, 25, 30 years ago, in Toronto for the purpose of restoring antique buildings, primarily Georgian and Victorian era buildings. During that period, we have restored and taken old buildings that would normally have been demolished, and we've completely restored them into office buildings, and they've become very, very popular in the city. We sold most of our buildings several years ago, and since that time, we've started to get a few more buildings together. The ones we currently have, our head office building is on Richmond at Widmer, and it consists of about 5 Victorian Georgian era buildings, which have all been converted by us into offices and are now fully leased. Our current, in addition to this, we own 2 buildings on the corner of John Street and Richmond, probably known by some of you as the Ballroom, which is a bowling alley, and Jack Astor's, which is a restaurant. Both of these buildings we've owned since for the last 30 years or more. The Ballroom was originally my head office 30 years ago, and it has, the city have decided that these two properties would be, should be heritage properties. The ballroom has not one iota of reference to the Victorian Georgian era. It is a plain box building. It has no aesthetic charm or anything at all resembling the era that we're dealing with, the Georgian and Victorian era. I have no idea why the city have decided to make this into a historic site, because there isn't one single item on the building that would make any reference to our history. Adjacent to this building, also forming the corner, is Jack Astor's, which probably some of you know, and we bought that about a year ago so that the two buildings together would make an ideal development site in the future. I believe the city are very interested in a development site, so I'm sure that they would like to see this corner developed one day. However, if the principal buildings in the city are both designated as historic sites, it will be very difficult to ever develop them, in my opinion. So my concern is that Jack Astor's is probably a historic site. However, the building is in shocking condition. It's had a tenant in there for the last 10 or 15, 20 years. They have done absolutely nothing whatsoever to improve the building. It's a wooden building, and it has no aesthetic appeal whatsoever. So we have the ballroom on the one hand, which has no aesthetic appeal. It wasn't even built in the era that we're talking about. It's of recent construction. It has no aesthetic appeal. Jack Astor's does, but it's in shocking condition. And in order to bring it back to what it used to be, it would require many $100,000 to do so. So my purpose today is to prevent the city from designating these two properties as historic sites, because first of all, they are not historic sites, and secondly, they will destroy our ability to develop that property over the next several years. And I think it's more important for the city to have development sites that are ideal for that purpose than it is to take a very short-term view and name these sites historic.
Thank you very much. That concludes your 5 minutes. Does anyone have any questions?
Can I have another minute?
No, unfortunately, we're extended beyond lunch hour in order to accommodate all of the speakers on this item, sir. So the next person to speak is Eileen Costello, Erdem Burles.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
You're welcome. Ms. Costello.
Good afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Chair and members of the committee, and thank you very much for the extension so that we could speak to you this morning. Madam Chair, there's 5 letters from my office on behalf of various property owners. I know you're tight for time, so I'm going to try and do all of this for all 5 as quickly as I can.
You have 5 minutes, so.
Giving you separate deputations. Madam Chair and members of the committee, I'm here speaking on behalf of approximately 45 property owners in the King Spadina district, who together own more than 3.5 million square feet of commercial and office space within the district. Many of those buildings were already listed and designated. The vast majority of them are not listed or designated, and yet they've been adaptively reused, restored, and conserved by our clients group over a period of multiple generations. In some instances, the families have owned the property for 3 to 4 generations since the beginning of the district. They were all involved in the process leading up to the draft plan, which is in front of you. They were actively engaged. My office has personally requested meetings with heritage preservation staff on more than a dozen occasions on behalf of this client group. We've never been given the courtesy of a meeting. I'm here today on behalf of my client group to indicate their really profound frustration with the way in which this plan has come forward and the timing of this plan coming forward. And I want to be really clear, this is not an opposition to the plan. This is a concern about the process, about the timing, and about some of the specific information which is in the plan. So I'm here today and I'm asking that the approval of this plan be deferred, and I'm asking that it be deferred in order for the King Spadina secondary plan to come forward. One of the things we were told at the outset of this process, we were told by the Manager of Heritage Preservation Services and the councillor that these two documents were going to be in lockstep, and that the planning and the urban design was going to come along with the heritage. I saw the item 2660 directing staff to bring that secondary plan forward in December. We've yet to even see a draft. So these two key instruments which are going to guide the development of this district, which we were always told were going to be done in collaboration and in consultation, are now out of step. And we have a real concern, a profound concern about that. We also have some real concerns with respect to what's in the plan, and I'm going to try and do this as quickly as I can. There's 4 primary concerns. The first is with respect to the boundary. Between the last draft, which was circulated late fall of last year, and people were given 30 days to respond to a draft which had been circulated after 2.5 years of public process. There's been a significant shift in the boundary. The boundary has shifted to the north and now includes the north side of Richmond Street. This has meant that there are now dozens of properties which were formerly not in the district, which are now in it, and hundreds of properties which are now adjacent to the district, which were never adjacent. There was no notice given to any of those property owners about that significant change. We caught it because one property owner has one site already in the district, and we were monitoring it for them. This property owner now has 6 sites which are now included within the district. None of them are contributing, none of them are listed, none of them are designated. That was done without notice to that property owner, and that's just one example that I happen to have. The second concern is with respect to the use of contributing versus non-contributing properties. Since 2014, our office has been asking, and our consultants have been asking for an understanding of the rationale as to what is contributing and what is not. We've never been given an answer. The report in front of you indicates that if a property was built after the period of significance, and if the property is neither listed nor designated, it would not be shown as contributing. That's what the plan says today at page 54. There's at least 4 properties that I know of that were built after the period of significance and are neither listed or designated, and they're shown as contributing. So the plan's wrong. Two of those properties were brought to the direct attention of heritage preservation staff. We've never had a response. A property being listed as contributing has significant impacts on the redevelopment potential, on the responsibility for maintenance, and on the responsibility for maintaining and adaptively reusing the property. If you're going to do that to someone's property, you need to have a rationale for doing it. The third issue and the concern is the way in which the plan is structured, and again, we've been voicing this concern since 2014. Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act says council can not approve a bylaw or proposal if that bylaw or proposal is contrary to the objectives of the Heritage Conservation District Plan. And the case law says that's the test. It's conformity with the objectives. The way in which your plan is worded now says to understand the objectives, you have to know the policies. The policies say they are mandatory and non-discretionary. What does that mean to the discretion of council under the Ontario Heritage Act and your ability to approve alterations and demolitions? We're very concerned that there's an exceedance. And if I could just have one more moment, please, because I've collapsed 5 deputations into one. The final concern relates to the statement of significance and the period of significance. You've taken the entire area of King Spadina. The Heritage Review covers more than 100 years. Your period of significance covers 1880 to 1940. And focuses on 2 building types. It's an incredibly Anglo, Protestant, limited view of the heritage of this community. There's no reference to First Nations. There's no reference to other cultural groups. There's no reference to the development which had occurred in the 1950s and the King's development, which are referenced in the plan as being critical to the evolution of the district. You're only focusing on 30 years and two types of properties. It's incredibly myopic.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions? Seeing none, the next speaker I have on my list, thank you very much, Ms. Costello, is Aaron Platt from Davies Howe. Okay. Your 5 minutes starts now.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Aaron Platt. I am with the law firm of Davies Howe LLP, and I'm counsel to Double Down Holdings, Inc. and Uxland Development West Inc. They are the respective owners of 488 Wellington Street West and 504 Wellington Street West. If I could just throw this up on the screen. And the pink highlight is there for a reason, and I'll get to that for a moment. I am here to speak to the HCD, and in particular, one very small aspect of the HCD, almost a sub-aspect of it. As noted in the study and staff's report, there is recognition within those reports and those documents of public and private laneways in the area and their contribution to the heritage character of the neighborhood, their ongoing use through decades and, in fact, in some cases, centuries within this area by several property owners. The term laneway implies some kind of shared access, be it a public laneway owned by the city with rights for travel by the public, or some type of private laneways where the land may be owned by one party or a series of owners that all link up, and there remains reciprocal rights of way that allow owners or neighboring owners to travel over each other's lands. We see this in laneways all throughout the city that sort of predate public laneways being instituted in many places. Now, these private laneways are protected and entrenched by easements that are registered on title, which makes it really difficult to eliminate them, and they sort of end up acting like public laneways anyways. So the average layman or member of the public may traverse them anyways because they assume they're public because they're not necessarily boarded up or there may not be a gate. I am not here to speak to either of those two categories. I recognize that those two categories do appear to have a entrenched position within this part of the study area. I am here, however, to speak to another group of land or another land type that is designated as laneways but do not follow those criteria. And those are driveways. And we're talking about just private pieces of land that are not subject to any easement or any right for any neighbor, and they have been used as specific loading areas for businesses or for parking for businesses. These are, as I've said, not subject to any rights to any other user, which means that as laneways, as understood through the study document, as methods and mechanisms for the public or other related businesses in the area to move through sort of the back parts of the neighborhood or the district, these driveways don't maintain those same characteristics. Historically speaking, the facts don't support that characterization. My client owns two such driveways, and those are the two driveways that I have up here. And you can see this is a driveway that does allow access by this owner and this owner only for access to the building. It does connect to the laneway, and again, I'm not taking any issue with the public laneway or any of the private laneways within the HCD study area, but I am speaking to this driveway and this driveway, which once one reviews the matter on title, we'll see that they are not subject to use by any party. And my client has significant concerns that the implication of this study is that their private laneways that do not allow access to any other party are now effectively being taken for public use because they have never had that historical context whatsoever attached to them. I am here to ask, and this is just to drive the point and make it a little bit clearer, this is on page 57 of the study, and it's the network of laneways. And as you can see, my client's only issue is with respect to these two small stubs that frankly are completely private, as I've said, and not subject to use by any party. And I'm here to ask the committee today to make an amendment to the recommendation and ask that prior to this matter proceeding, that the schedule with the network of laneways is clarified to eliminate those two laneways. These matters have been raised with heritage preservation staff in the past, and to date we have not received any response.
Is that the entirety of your presentation?
Tried to keep it under 5 minutes.
Does anyone have any questions? I actually just have a quick question. So you've outlined two that you know of driveways within this district. Are you aware of any others?
I have not yet been authorized by my client to conduct the title searches and the disbursements involved in searching all the laneways in the area. I would expect that prudent owners would review those matters, and if their private property was being so designated, they would take the necessary steps.
Okay, fair enough. It was anecdotal more.
Yeah, no, if I was aware of any, I would certainly advise the committee, but I haven't been asked to conduct an overall search of the.
Thanks very much for your presentation. So I have two more speakers listed. I have Elena Kotsaboikidis and Emily Degla. Is Elena here? Oh, it's Eleni. Sorry, I have Elena. Come.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. For the record, it's Kotsaboikidis, initial E, that's Eleni. I am appearing on behalf of my father, who sits here today, for 342 Adelaide Street West. He's the lovely man sitting back there. I mean, I'm going to try and make this as short as possible, but Ms. Costello covered off pretty much everything I was going to say, other than the fact that I'm only here representing my father. There is no doubt that the Ontario Heritage Act provides wide powers to interfere with individual property rights. However, it can equally be said that the legislature also recognizes the preservation of Ontario's heritage should not be accomplished at the expense of individual property owners, the community at large, and in complete and total disregard for individual property owners' rights. The proposed HCD is going to do just that. There's issues of necessities involved as to why, in fact, this is even coming into play. Many owners have already invested in the conservation of their respective properties. My dad property, for example, the facade of it at 342 Adelaide Street West, and many of the key heritage properties have already been identified, and if not, I respectfully invite individual property owners to canvass their options. Again, in an aim to not be repetitive here, the main issue with the HCD is that we don't know what role our property is going to play. We don't know what it's going to mean for our future. We don't know what it's going to mean for the future development, and again, the responsibility for maintenance and so on and so forth. And that has not been made clear by the proposal in any way, shape, or form. Again, it's not just about the HCD in and of itself, but it's a concern with the process, with the timing, and most importantly, with the lack of consultation. My dad came here at 15 years old. He speaks poor English, and he hasn't even had an opportunity or any kind of notice whatsoever for someone to come and speak to him about what's going on here. And so here I sit here today. Another couple concerns, again, with the contributing versus non-contributing resources is problematic. That ties into whether, the policy even takes into account health and safety and structural issues, given demolition of a contributing resource is not allowed or requires quite intensive, application for certain permits or so on. Again, that's just not been made clear to us or to my father as an individual property owner. There are a number of questions that still need to be addressed, primarily the economic and financial implications to individual property owners. In my respectful submission, impeding the ability of any kind of landowner to modify their property is going to influence its value, directly or indirectly. We don't know what timelines there are going to be for landowners to expect for certain evaluations for permits to come in. We don't know if there's been a study, or we have no information on the change in the resale value of these properties before and after these designations have been imposed on properties in other districts. So we just have no information in that regard. At the end of the day, the main issue, as I said, is we don't know what our role or what role our property will play in all of this. And we submit that the economic impacts are just going to be detrimental to future property owners should this HCD come into effect.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for the deputant?
I just want to add one more thing, and I really just want to state it for the record because I don't know who makes the changes around here, but at page 158 in the statement of contribution at 342 Adelaide Street West, it lists the building typology as residential and it's commercial. So I just wanted to make that point for the record and have that either amended or known. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for your deputation. I am now going to call Emily Daigle. Good afternoon, Emily. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. And I'm actually going to use a piece of equipment that I've fought very, very hard for. So I have very quickly 2 issues with this, and unfortunately, I couldn't be here before due to Wheel-Trans getting me here really late, and I apologize. No one that has walked up here, that I've been watching it on YouTube and since I've gotten here to the chamber, has spoken up about accessibility and AODA, and the fact that once an area becomes an HCD, property owners have an extremely hard time making things accessible, putting any physical changes on their properties or buildings. And most importantly, most businesses in this area right now are not wheelchair accessible. I go in this area quite often. I live downtown now. Thank you, Ward 28. And a huge problem that a lot of us have with disabilities, and there's a lot of people that live in this area, in this catchment area, who have disabilities, who would like to shop in their home areas, who'd love to shop at these beautiful businesses that these people are here. But making it HCD puts barriers up against the property owners of accommodating those of us with disabilities. Other than putting a stopgap ramp, some of these businesses can't do much once an HCD is in effect. I've seen the issues with that downtown. I've seen the issues with that in other areas. And I hear complaints from business owners all the time when I ask about it. Oh, well, it's a heritage property, I can't change it. Or, oh, it's too frustrating to deal with it. It's too frustrating to deal with the city to be able to make it AODA compliant. And I wish this city would put more thought. I've read through the whole document. Almost nothing is mentioned about accessibility. Is this not the year 2017? Is this 1950 where people with disabilities were hidden away and not seen in public? No, it's 2017. Let's get with it. Let's put in some measures in this act to make it easier for business owners who choose to and who want to. And they're getting older themselves, so they need the accessibility, not just us. Those of us who are going to shop and people like me who have very limited financial means, we choose very carefully where we spend our money. And it's not at businesses that are not accessible. So please, make it so that these businesses can make themselves accessible, be able to attract new clients and new customers. Don't put handcuffs on the business owners that want to become accessible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emily. That concludes the speakers list. We are now in recess till 1:30 for lunch.
What, no questions? You don't even ask for questions?
I didn't think that there would be any questions, but
Assuming. Anybody? Anybody want to ask me a question? Because you all know me
we're
very
in
well.
recess. Thank you very much.
See what I fought hard for?
Yeah.
Good job. Hey.
What you realize is all bullshit. And it's sad because you make a major effort to get here, and it's basically, are you finished yet? And, and she didn't,